Welcome, everyone, to our Halloween Spooktacular. Music like this, you just can't talk fast over it.
No, did someone let John Carpenter in?
John, he's on tour. John.
And he does tour, too, by the way. It's great, by the way.
The music of John Carpenter. Hey, it's The Fog. Good morning, Walt.
Good morning.
Good morning.
No, it's good evening.
Good evening.
He's the morning man. He's so used to the morning. He's the morning man.
Yeah, I know. Well, this is what it looks like when I come into work. I do this all the time with high school football.
Is this the 5th annual Halloween Spooktacular? Really, 5 years?
This is our 5th annual. 5 years, which means you've been here longer than that.
Yeah, at least 6.
Well, at
maybe,
least at this station.
Right.
You've been involved in radio a lot longer.
Yeah, the other station was a transformer. It turned into a car museum.
Bye-bye.
It made that noise, too.
Pulled away.
Wow. Fantastic.
Well, everyone, welcome to our Halloween Spooktacular, the 5th annual on WBHF. We're going straight through to midnight. Gonna have a lot of fun.
The amount of coffee in this room may have just broken a record.
Everyone's got a mug. Well, you know, you get to a certain age.
We've all got a mug and a cup of coffee as well.
You get to a certain age where you're not supposed to be out after 9.
Where most of us are like, aren't I supposed to be in bed?
Responsible adults are at home listening to this.
Halloween night, yeah.
And then there's us.
Right. Yeah, the responsible ones are at home getting ready to turn us off. Like my wife was like, I love when you're on the air, and then I can shut you up anytime I want. Instantaneous silence.
My wife was just like, you're doing what tonight?
Did you not tell her?
I told her the other day.
I told her about 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, on the way out.
By the way.
Thanks for dinner.
Yeah, I found out something that doesn't work so well. I thought it would work great.
I've got a long list.
This is a scary story. If you're married, here's a scary story. So we have a shared online calendar, right?
Oh, that's a mistake.
No, that's a great thing because I know, our kid, like our youngest who's still at home, puts her schedule on it, so I know, hey, where's Sophie? She's at work. I can see it. So I had a recording session, so I put it on my calendar. I was like, I'm gonna spend a couple hours recording. Never bothered to go say I was gonna record or ask permission to go record. And so when I got the look of like, where are you going? I'm like, I'm heading to the studio. I got to record. She's like, I'm like, it's on the calendar. Didn't bode so well for me. First of all, I got the look before I left that made me realize I don't want to come back.
That's right.
You know that look?
I've been recording for a long time.
It's like, I may not come back home.
This is a marathon session.
Yeah. So I learned my lesson. I was told it's great to put it on the calendar, but it's better to ask for permission. Apparently forgiveness doesn't work so well.
He'll be here till Bartow's morning news in the morning,
right.
so he'll just hang out. There's a cot in the back
well,
there.
We have to presume that there's listening going on right now, and there might be.
Certainly hope so.
I hope so.
I certainly hope
Very
so.
well
I really do.
I put it all over the place out there on the internet, so hopefully somebody's
We may
listening.
end up with a caller here in a minute.
All right, so we are going to have some fun tonight. We are going to, we may even take calls if you want to weigh in on some things. If there's stuff that we talk about, everybody got some homework to take tonight. We all had, I sent everybody some things to do, so we'll have things to talk about, like your typical things you've heard on other radio stations. It's a normal thing. 5 of your favorite Halloween candies, like when you go trick-or-treating, what absolutely has to be in the basket. When you're going through eating, what are the ones that are absolutely last because you refuse to eat them? You'll pick any other candy but those.
The ones you donate the next day at school.
The ones you go to your mom and dad. Here you go. You want these?
The dog.
The dog. You know it's bad.
No chocolate, though. No chocolate for dogs.
Well, especially not milk.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know it's bad when you go to the dog, like, come here. And he walks away.
Yeah.
Aww. That's bad. Left me with this.
That's right.
We're talking about some of our scariest movies that we still to this day like. What's our top 5 when we have to go back? What are some of our best comedy quotes?
Wait, like or scare us to death?
It could be either, whatever you decided. I've got a couple in my list. In fact, I added a couple extra. I put an honorable mention and I put an embarrassing mention because I have a very embarrassing movie that when I was a kid made me cry. It made me cry. It made me panic. And then I got made fun of because I cried some more.
Grease?
No, I cry with that now. So that's. I cry when I say we're watching what? We could watch Die Hard, right? No, we're watching Grease. But we've got some things that we'll talk about as well. BK, I know you've been putting some things together. We have a guest calling in. You've got a guest lined up.
Yes, we have a guest coming in the studio later and one calling in. Lezlie Sawyer will be checking in with us. She's a local lady here that lives in Cartersville. She's very involved in cosplay. She's an Elvira impersonator cosplay person. That's about as, horror and Halloween as you can get.
I now understand why you wanted her.
Yeah. And, well, yeah. And
she's got some major endowments to bring to our show.
Right, endowments of the arts. The
arts.
Yeah.
Yes.
She also does some voice acting and voiceover acting for some Star Trek audio adventures as well. So she's done a lot. She's all local here in Cartersville, and she's done quite a bit. She's going to check in with us probably sometime after 10 p.m. Eastern tonight.
Yes, and then after the bottom of the 10:30 hour, right around 10:30 to 11, we are going to have author J.W. Webb. He joined us last year, and he was so much fun. We're like, I'm going to bring you back. He's a Brit by birth, has a lot of great tales that he had from the UK, but lives here. And he published a book a couple years ago called The Haven, which is a scary story about a haunt. And you can get that. He was actually offering it via Amazon or something for like $1, digital download if you want to get it during Halloween. So we'll talk to him about that. We'll talk to him about any other spooky tales he might have to tell.
I'm going to ask him how well he loves the Hammer films, because growing up I loved the Hammer movies from the Hammer Studios and Bray Studios in London, in England, which always housed their versions of Dracula and Frankenstein and the Mummy with Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee. And I'm sure he is, since he's from there. So I'm going to ask him about the Hammer films while he's in here.
Excellent. Well, let's go ahead and get to our first thing, and a nice easy one for us to start with, the candy question.
We better give out the number too. We haven't done that.
Oh yeah, we
yet.
can do that if you want to call in 770-386-1450. Let's see. Let's bring up some of our. Well, I gotta wait for that commercial to stop. I'm gonna get some of our potions brewing here in the background. I like having a little bit of sound effect as we make our way. Oh, I don't know what that is. That's a different.
That's a terrible potion.
That didn't go out over the air.
Hold on. It's this one. It's this vial here. Yeah. Pour that one in.
It didn't go out over the air.
Pour that one in.
It went
there.
in your ears because I hit the Q button.
It definitely went in my ears.
There we go.
All right.
That's green. That stuff is smoking.
Oh, that's the good
That's
stuff.
the best stuff.
Right. Okay, I had to fire up the Bunsen burner. The Bunsen honeydew.
Of course, I screwed up on the formula, on our spot. I didn't turn into Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, or Mr. Hyde. I didn't turn into Mr. Hyde. So.
No, you didn't.
So let me mix it up.
The first one we'll go with, and if you want to weigh in as well from home, you're playing the Spooktacular board game along with us at your address.
Spooktacular board game.
Yes, it's fun for the whole family. 770-386-1450. Let's start off with the easy one. Top 5 favorite holiday or Halloween candies. The candies you want to see in your bag. Let's go around the table, 5, 2, 1. We'll start each. I'll say my number 5, Milky Way. I like a Milky Way bar. It's got a little bit of everything. A little chocolate, a little caramel, some of that whipped nougat. It's kind of like a combination of 2 or 3 different candy bars.
Yeah, I can see that. That's a good choice.
All right.
That's nice.
What's your number 5?
Who's he looking at? Is it Walt?
I'll go with number 5, Sweet Tarts.
Oh, Sweet Tarts are good.
Sweet Tarts.
I like Sweet Tarts. Before we get to BK, we've got someone calling in. So let's go to the phones.
Maybe it's a Sweet Tart calling in.
Good evening. Welcome. Who's this?
This is Barbara.
Well, hello, Barbara.
It is a Sweet Tart calling it.
Welcome to Hanging House.
I don't give candy. I always give bubble gum.
Ooh, do you get double bubble?
Yes.
Oh, that's great.
That's good, because that's
the
different.
best flavor for a good 5 minutes.
And the kids love it. My daughter's a teacher, and she can get her kids to do anything for that.
Oh, my goodness. I like double bubble. What's the other one that's like double bubble? There's double bubble, and then there was another one, Pal's gum.
Pal's
That's
gum.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's what I give.
Awesome. So what's your favorite? Now, that's what you give. What's your favorite? What do you like if you had to pick a favorite candy?
Oh, Snickers.
Ooh, Snickers is good. I think it's going to make one or
really
two of our
satisfies.
lists. It does satisfy. And it
Also,
turns you back to normal.
On the movies,
Oh, you're jumping ahead now.
Okay, well, I just want to get it in.
You want to get it in before you go to bed?
Me, The Exorcist cannot be beat.
I agree with you.
Wow.
That is my all-time, I'm giving away a little spoiler. We talked about it last week on BK's show. That is my all-time scariest film that I still to this day gives me the... I mean, I love it more from the craft because I'm an adult, but it still hangs with me because I remember as a kid having nightmares for weeks.
Look at his arm. He's thinking about it right now. Look at that.
Yeah, I got the shakes.
Well, my husband was grown, and it scared him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's
All right, thanks a lot, Barbara. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Fantastic. Bazooka was the other gum. Bazooka.
gum.
Yeah.
But
It had, and you could
had a little
take the
comic
package
book.
and it had the little comic book in it.
Comic, that's right.
Yes.
I was trying to remember which one had the
Bazooka Joe.
I think Bazooka gum lasted about 10.9 seconds longer than Double Bubble did. Yeah, probably.
comic. They both turned to wax.
That's still not a lot.
Well, what I loved about it is when you kind of battle through and like I'm going to keep chewing it, and then next thing you know, you had like the sides of your jaws started getting really strong because of it was so hard. You just worked out your jaw muscles.
and sore.
Yeah,
Like,
really
ow.
sore.
That's right.
All right, so mine was Milky Way number 5. Yours was Sweet Tarts. BK, what's your number 5?
If I had to go in order backwards, number 5 for me would be a Baby Ruth.
Baby Ruth.
Because and
You like baseball.
and let's not confuse it with the baseball Babe Ruth, because I knew the commercials did it for a while, but that's had nothing to do with that. It was Baby Ruth was the chocolate bar creator's daughter, I think is what I understand. So that was her name. So yeah, Baby Ruth is another one of those combination of nuts, a little bit of nougat, a little bit of caramel and chocolate. So it actually wound up being really delicious. Yes,
I don't mind Baby Ruth. I don't know why it didn't make my list. I hadn't had one in a long, long time.
they're hard to find now. You really have to search for them. Sometimes you can go to some stores and they don't have them, but only certain places have them now, and I don't know why. They're hard to find.
One of life's great
So that's
mysteries.
number 5. That's my number 5.
All right, number 4 for me. Break me off a piece of that Kit Kat bar. Give me some wafers and chocolate.
Nothing wrong with that.
I like Kit Kats.
That's a good choice.
Okay. Well,
And did
me?
you break them off one at a time, or do you take them the whole thing and take a bite out
Never
of it?
did that. I've always broken them. I've
'Cause
always
I had
broken them
friends
off
that
into
did
strips.
did it both ways, so that's kind of. I don't think there's a wrong way
I
to
wish
do it.
I don't have friends that do it both ways, but if you can get me her number.
Number 4,
We're
Reese's
late.
Peanut Butter Cups.
Oh,
Number
okay.
4,
That's
okay.
that's a good number 4.
Yeah. That's
Which on the list though?
It's
That's
solid.
It's
good.
on the list.
It's in the top 5 of a lot of lists.
See, I'm a big candy person, so this is a tough one.
Are you like Reese's anything? I mean, if it's Reese's, no matter what they do to them, it's still good, right? Have
I
you
never
tried
really
the different
liked
ones?
Not the
Reese's
monkeys.
Pieces that much.
Reese's Pieces, yeah, they were their ripoff of M&M's.
Yeah.
Is what they did.
But
But
no, any of the chocolate and peanut butter combination.
did you know they were originally going to be M&M's and E.T. and wound up being Reese's Pieces instead?
Yeah, because
Yes.
M&M's pulled out. They didn't
They
like.
pulled
they
out,
didn't-
and boy, was that a mistake.
big time.
So I'm like,
Huge
wow.
mistake.
All right, so number 4 for you, BK.
Number 4, I'm going to mention the Skor bar. SKOR. You guys ever had a Skor?
Is that Swedish?
I have had a
No, I think it's Hershey's. It's a chocolate, very thin bar. It's chocolate on the outside, and it's like a butterscotch, really hard, crunchy
like a
center.
a brittle-
It's very thin, yeah, and
Yeah.
it's so delicious. I love the Skor bar.
I think I've had that before.
I should have brought one in, let him eat it.
It would have been good. All right, number 3 for me, because I kind of like the same thing where I've got a crunchy inside and a chocolate outside. Give me a Twix bar. Little cookie, little caramel, chocolate on the outside, Twix.
You like them from the left factory or the right one?
I'll take it from either factory.
That's right. That's the right answer.
As long as it's a Twix bar.
That's right. It's the right answer.
All right, so number 3 with me comes with an explanation.
Uh-oh. There's an
The only
asterisk
reason
by it.
this is not number 1 is because it came in such a small package, but it's
Oh.
M&M's. You'd get like 4 M&Ms in the package, and that just
In the old days, you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, when you got them that way, you're
and when
right.
it's kind of like heroin, and you start eating M&Ms
Kind
and you
of,
can't
yeah.
stop,
Kind
that small package is
quite.
just not enough. Otherwise, M&Ms would be number 1.
Okay, now, and you like just the regular, not the peanut.
Right. Now, I like the peanut, but I prefer the regular.
See, if I have to pick between the two, I like the peanut.
Yeah.
Yes, I go with the peanut, but if the regular M&Ms are there, I'll eat those. Yeah.
Those are
Oh,
good.
yeah.
Now, do you save the green ones for last?
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Is there any other way to eat them?
Hold on. I gotta move some of these beakers around. Okay.
The green ones for last. I don't know what that means. What are you talking about?
You don't? Do you like eat your green ones when they show up, or do you wait and save all the green ones for last?
I just eat them all together.
So in Alabama,
what's up
they
with the
didn't
green
know
one?
about that.
So he doesn't. They don't do that in Alabama.
Will you tell me at the break?
We'll tell you
Sure.
off the air.
Okay, good. I'll wait.
It goes with that friend that can
green
go
one.
both ways.
I still don't get it.
We'll explain it.
That's probably why you're eating the green ones too soon.
And I'm sure
Okay.
somebody has posted it on the Facebook page what we're talking about.
All right. So BK, you're number 3.
My number 3 is Milky Way.
Milky Way.
It's on there. Milky Way is one of those. I know people that do not like Milky Ways, and the Three Musketeer bar is similar to the Milky Way, and it's got that soft, airy center. Except the Milky Way's got the caramel in there as well. But the Milky Way is always a go-to candy bar, which is if it's always there, I'll eat it. I mean, if it's there, it's my number 3, but I do have 2 more.
Well, it worked rest or play. Milky Way.
Right.
So, I mean, it's there for you, buddy.
If you eat enough of them, you'll be as big as the Milky Way, too. So be careful about that.
That's exactly right.
As we prove every day. I think we have some satellites circling us right now. It's no moon. It's a space station.
What is that?
That's right. What is that?
No moon.
Where'd you get that cool belt?
Asteroids. You have asteroids. Oh, okay. Well, there's...
No, my dad does.
You can get
He's
something...
taking medicine for that.
What time is it again? Oh, okay.
We've only gone 21 minutes.
It's not the morning news show.
2
that's
hours
for sure.
and 38 minutes to go. All right, number 2 for me, Snickers. It's because it satisfies. Snickers is a really good candy bar.
I know people that'll get a Snickers that just want, like really healthy people that are runners and stuff. They're like, I need a Snickers for some energy, and Snickers does it. I mean, it's packed full of. It's got so
chocolate,
much
caramel,
calories
nuts.
in it, and fat, and carbohydrates, and sugar in it that it just blows your head off.
Okay, so my number 2, not following the rules as usual, are all other candy bars except my number 1.
Wait, no,
because
you
I was
can't do
always
that.
Wow.
Well, no, because I was always like, hey, a Mounds, hey, whatever. That was always like my second favorite thing because I was like, well, it's not my number 1, but they're really, really awesome.
But so you haven't really met a candy bar you don't like, right? That you loathe and hate.
Well, look at me. Do I look like I?
I did that earlier. I said
maybe
that,
if there's like a kale candy bar.
Kale candy bar.
Kale. And even then, you'd probably try
I'd
it.
try it.
Put a little sugar on it.
Does it have nougat?
Yeah, kale nougat.
I even like Payday, which is basically.
I'm sorry, that sounded like a football player. Kale nougat runs fullback
it's a NASCAR driver.
for the Dallas Cowboys or something. Yeah, it's not as funny as Dick Trickle, but it's really funny.
No,
and hey, that's a real name.
That's
I'm
a real
not
name.
making
It's
that
absolutely.
up. So, yeah. So wow, any candy bar other than number 1. That's funny.
Kale Nougat, I'm going to take that Dick Trickle and go put him in the wall.
That's pretty funny. That's a good answer, though, for number 2.
Are you allowed to say that on the air?
I don't know.
Yes, in that context.
The name.
Yeah, I guess you. Yeah,
It's all about the context.
and I guess he can say that about number 2. That's wow.
So you've changed the rules on me. I was not expecting that. Okay, that's
You were not.
I can't.
Okay, how long
No,
have
wait
we
a
been
minute.
friends?
I can't put that on there. I can't put that on my list.
yeah.
You did not expect me to change the rules.
There are some that I don't like, so I can't put that on my
In
list.
fairness, I was not expecting podcast Walt. I was expecting radio broadcast Walt.
You're
Not
expecting
podcast,
professional.
Like I gave you homework. I was like ahead of time. Like this isn't making it up on the fly. You had time to think about it.
Again.
Can't make it podcast. We don't have any horse whinny over there. There's no editing here.
You're like the Ron Weasley. I give you the
Weasley.
homework. Like, oh, okay, and you like turn in a crumpled piece of greasy paper. What's on it? I meant to write something, but here you go.
See, number 2 had to be very broad because I was like, 47, 48. I got to narrow this down to 2.
So you were able to come up with 5, 4, and 3, but then 2 becomes the catch-all.
Well, and I even changed around some of these in the last few minutes. So
I believe him. He's an honest guy. He's being honest.
That is true.
I believe him.
I cannot. Yes, he tells the truth. BK, you're
to a fault sometimes.
You're number 2.
Number 2 for me.
Who does number 2 work
Number
for?
2. Well, it's not. Say chocolate. The number 2 for me is the number 1 for America this year is the Reese's.
Reese's
that's
peanut
my
butter
number
cups.
2. There's only one that edges out Reese's for me because Reese's to me we talked about this too. Anytime you take chocolate and peanut butter and mix it together, it's a winning combination
no doubt.
on just about anything that you can do. So Reese's is number 2 for me.
Number 2 for you.
Good choice.
Well, your number 2 is my number 1.
Number 1.
In fact,
Did you bring one? Oh, he's
Look at
got
this.
Reese's in the studio.
so
Holy cow.
one of our loyal listeners during the week, we were talking about our favorite candies, and I had said that is still my all-time favorite. If I'm at the grocery store and I feel like I just need to binge or splurge on something, of all the candy bars I mentioned, I will always opt for the Reese's Peanut Butter Cup. It's just such a perfect combination of chocolate and peanut butter.
It is. It's fantastic.
And so Michael Schwartz, who is the new post commander of the American Legion, was listening, heard Kevin Pate talking about that he likes candy corn,
Right.
that he doesn't understand why there's such a crusade against candy corn. and he heard me talk about it. Goes like, I didn't mind candy corn, but I said I will always go for the Reese's. He stopped by this morning. He goes, this way you don't have to go trick or treating. The trick or treating's coming to you.
Awesome.
And he brought us each a candy bag.
The treating came to you. That's perfect. That's fantastic.
Well, it may be a trick later. I'm not sure. Maybe explain the tummy ache I had earlier.
Oh, you already had one. Okay, sorry. Let him eat one first. Yeah,
but
he'll be the guinea pig.
So
Reese's
he gave
with
Kevin
X-Lax.
Pate the candy corn, and I got the Reese's peanut butter cup. So I will share these with you during a break if you'd like one.
I like Reese's enough to where I wouldn't want anybody to test one. I'll just go ahead and test it myself because I love
I'm
them so
willing
much.
to
I'll
take
take
whatever
the
they put in it.
That's right. It's peanut butter and chocolate
So
and
Reese's
whatever else.
is your number one.
That's my number one.
Wow.
Well, Snickers is my number one.
Snickers.
So look at you and I. We just alternated.
Yeah.
Which means it's all. Wait a minute, but you had a 2 that was everything.
Yeah, I had kind of the all-inclusive.
So Snickers
too.
is the one that no matter what,
No
that's
matter
the
what,
one you
like
would go
that
for
was the
first.
one I felt like I scored.
Wow.
You know, and that was the one I'm like,
No, score is his number.
Change.
Number
That's
4.
true. Yeah,
That's right.
And that's the
Number 4.
change the costume quick and run back to the door to get more.
You're giving away full bars.
Snickers. Oh my gosh! If it was a full bar, it was like.
I'm going to ask that question in a
Yeah.
second when we finish up with the listing because we're going to be at the bottom of the hour. BK, your number one.
Hey, my number one candy, it doesn't even have to be Halloween. It's just the number one candy bar of all time for me is Butterfinger. If it's in a Blizzard, a Dairy Queen, I don't care. Just a Butterfinger BBs. That whole thing that they did with the crunchy inside and that outside, that's been around for so many years. It's an old candy bar. I've seen some of the old logos since it's Halloween. They've showed some of the old packaging on it, and it's nice to see that nostalgia on Facebook and whatnot. But Butterfinger for me is number one.
And I don't know what kind of
Butterfingers.
chocolate they use, but they have great chocolate.
It's a different kind of chocolate. I don't know what it is, but it's one of the it is the most delicious to me candy bar. And I think everybody's bar of candy on this list are winners. I would eat all of your candy
Right.
too, so it's really good.
Well, I will take Walt's top list because his number 2 has everything.
Yeah, that's right. Especially his number 2. But there was someone his number 2 I wouldn't like though.
No, I don't know.
I mean, I don't like all of them. So
I'm trying to think of a candy bar I don't like.
I don't like Mounds and Almond Joy because I'm not a big coconut.
I can
I
go
like
with it.
coconut
Yeah.
flavor.
I'll eat it.
But I'm not going to throw it in the trash.
No, you're going to give
I
them
might
me.
eat it or give it to you guys. Yeah,
It belongs in his number
but
2.
I'm not a big fan of those.
So yeah, no, I'm gonna eat. Is there a candy bar? Now I'm not talking about like you said Sweet Tarts as your number 5, which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as candy bars, something that's chocolate oriented, or like a Payday, which is I guess still a candy bar. It's not got chocolate. What has it got? It's got glue and peanuts.
Right.
What is that?
And see, I like Paydays.
I do like Paydays.
They're caramel,
You know what? A little bit
stuck
of
together
nougat.
peanuts. That's
Of
Of all
exactly
the
what they
candy
are.
bars, that's
with salt,
probably
with
the
salt.
healthiest because it's mostly peanuts.
And
Right.
salt. It's very salty too. So,
But is there a candy bar that you would just look at and go, "There's no way I'm eating that"?
I'm trying to think.
not candy bar.
I can't really think of a.
candy. I mean, there's candy, which we'll get to that here in a little bit of our worst
Like
list.
we used
but
to even
yeah.
get these things called the Charleston Chews. They were like a foot long, and they had
Yeah.
like a marshmallowy
remember
kind of
that,
inside and a
yeah.
chocolate
Right.
outside. I'll eat those.
There was another one
Yeah.
called Marathon, which was
The
kind of a
Marathon
crisscross,
bar.
like a wicker
Yeah.
piece of wicker.
Yep.
It was
Yep.
crossed around. It was good.
I don't think there is a single candy bar.
$100,000 bar is good. Some of them
That
are hard
is
to find.
good.
There's a bar called Zero.
Yeah.
Remember the Zero bar that had the white chocolate on the outside?
Do you remember
and
the
salt
whatchamacallit?
inside? Whatchamacallit was good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again,
How about
I haven't found one.
Zagnut?
Zagnut is a good one.
Zagnut.
That's
We-
probably one that I've had maybe twice in my life,
But you didn't hate it.
I didn't hate it.
I think it's safe to say there's not one candy bar that we loathe.
Nope. I think we're all
There's
good on
candy that we don't like.
All right,
but
we've
not
got less than
candy
40
bar.
seconds till GNN bottom of the hour. Walt, was there ever that one house the rich house that everybody knew would give out the full-size candy bars?
Oh, that was always the first house we went to.
Yep.
Yes.
Everybody knew the rich house.
Yep.
And they gave out the one we went to gave out candy along with some homemade tea cakes,
Oh yeah.
little cookies, and a little tiny brown bag of popcorn as well.
nice.
That was stapled shut.
All right. Does I've got an honorable mention. I'll bring it up when we come back. Does anybody have an honorable mention they want to get to when we come back?
One that since my number 2 covered.
You're done. So we're not going to be able to talk about it. All right, we've got GNN News bottom of the hour. We got more of your Halloween
Happy
Spooktacular
Halloween.
still to come. Apparently we don't do GNN at the bottom of the hour, so what we're going to do is we're going to take ourselves a break, which makes it even easier. Ready? I've got something to tell you. When my daughter was 2 years old, I found her twirling paper towel tubes tied with twine in the air. I asked her what she was doing. She said she was practicing her nunchucks. I was confused as she'd have no way of knowing what those were. I asked her what she meant, and she said Adam told her how to make them and showed her how each night, showing her even how to use them. She went on to say that Adam told her to practice because she may need to know how to defend herself someday. Now, I almost freaked out, okay, because I just, like when your kid, a 2-year-old, is telling you this. So I said, what did Adam look like? And she said, well, he's tall and blonde, blue eyes. She said, Mommy, you know how he looks. You know him. He died of a headache. I had to leave the room. 4 months before she was born, my tall, blonde, blue-eyed martial arts pro friend had died of a brain aneurysm at the age of 27. She had not spoken of him since that day, so I'm not sure if I scared her with my reaction or if she had completed her lessons. I'm just reading the story.
I was actually into that, and I'm like, well, I don't know if is it Ashton or his other daughter.
No, Elena was the one that got into Taekwondo.
I went to behind him, and I'm like, oh, he's reading that off the screen.
No, I found
Ghost
that.
Story. That's pretty scary.
I do have. We'll talk about that later. That's one of our things. I'm going to probably retell my Yoo-Hoo story, and I don't mean the chocolate drink.
Oh, that's scary enough as it is. I can't stand those. Talk about something like hate is Yoo-Hoo.
Welcome back, everyone, to our Halloween Spooktacular, 770-386-1450 if you want to be part of the program. We're wrapping up on our best candy, and I did have an honorable mention because this is one I almost always will buy when I go to the movie theater. And I'm not sure why. I don't just buy it normally, but it's like I associate it with the movie theater.
Are you going to say Milk Duds?
No.
Oh, okay.
Close.
Snow Caps.
And not Raisinets, please.
Junior Mints.
Oh, Junior
Mints.
Something about that mint, gooey center with the dark chocolate outside. Give me a peppermint patty. It's the same thing as far as I'm concerned.
Thanks to Seinfeld.
Don't
I
go
always
to
associate those with surgery.
Don't go to an open surgery demonstration if you're eating the Junior Mints.
Right, because they have that thing where you can look over and there's no glass between you and the patient.
No, that's a sterile environment.
I do want to say that on Facebook, Jerry Gillef is listening to us, and he seconds me on Hammer Films and Butterfinger, which is kind of nice, and I'm glad he's out there listening to the program. So fantastic. Just checking in here.
Well, Jerry's a good guy with Bad Cop Show.
That's right.
Really?
Oh my God! You know what? You know how there's no more shock jocks anymore because it would make people melt and wither and burn away.
They've all moved to podcasts.
I missed the shock jocks.
They've moved to podcasts, and these guys are so funny being so wrong. I crack up going, you guys are so lucky you're not on the air. Actually, one of their episodes recently, they said, we may not be back. And I'm like, as a podcast?
That's pretty bad.
When you get canceled as a podcast,
we canceled ourselves. That was so bad. We're just not going to be back. Well, Jerry, thanks for listening out there. That's awesome. We also have Chrissy with the Boozy Betties tuned in and listening to us this evening. She's in Chicago, where they just had a snowstorm today.
And their police chief just got arrested for DUI this morning. Again.
Yeah.
He was bent over the...
Well, he wasn't going to go to that Trump rally.
Is he the one that was found slumped over his steering wheel?
Yes.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Wow, I saw that story. I didn't know that was
when
him.
you arrest the boss,
Wow.
that's a bad day.
All right, does anybody else have an honorable mention before we
Yeah,
move
my buddy Lee over in Alabama is
He's a candy you like?
He is a candy. He's an honorable mention.
The
candy.
Lee bar.
I like to
No, but I just want to
Lee.
give him a shout out. He's a teacher over in Alabama, and he is listening to us. An hour behind us, but he's listening.
I've known a few teachers in Alabama. Went to school over there.
Yeah,
So
you drove
that's
a few people out of
that's where I'm
education.
from. Yeah, that's right. It's fantastic.
Yeah, we don't know. He keeps thinking that he escaped. They didn't want him back. They sent him to Georgia.
And
you go
that's,
that way.
And that's
right.
bad.
You go east, young man.
When they went. The best thing to come out of Alabama was me.
I-20.
That's right.
You are I-20.
I-20 as well.
Yeah, what do you
I-59 comes out as well.
All right, so let's go with this next list because since we're on candy and we're having fun, we're sort of starting off low and light.
My honorable mention is the Snickers.
Snickers?
I mean, I'll
Okay.
throw that because you
Good
always get a
choice.
Snickers, yeah.
That'll always work, yeah. All right, how about Dun, da, da, da.
We're gonna
your
do
5 worst, the ones that you dig past all of them.
This
to
was
look
much
for.
easier.
This was the easiest one.
Like
to do,
certainly,
yeah.
I left 3 Musketeers or a Hershey's Kiss or heck, even a box of raisins somewhere before I go to these candies. Did you ever get the little mini box of raisins?
Oh yeah, they got like 8 of them in there.
I hated that, but I would still eat them before any of these 5 on my list.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I got an apple once.
I
I'm
hate
like,
that.
what do I do with
I
an
hate
apple?
that.
Throw
I
it
hate
at
that son made to this day. Even the picture of her on the little boxes of
Oh,
raisins.
I like raisins.
Oh, I don't want them for Halloween though.
No.
Don't give them to me on Halloween. That's terrible. It's hard. It's harder to pick your 5 best candy bars. Like it's harder for us to pick our 5 best movies. It's like picking your best kids as children. But the worst ones, that's an easy list to make. Yeah, I made that list.
Absolutely right.
All right, we'll do the same thing again. We'll go from the number 5, which means we'd probably still eat it, to the number 1, which, oh dear Lord, do I have to eat it? Right. All right. We're going to put the scary music back on because these are all making me feel sick to my stomach. My number 5, any liquid juice-filled wax product.
Those are horrible.
I don't care whether it's fake teeth, Coke bottles, shape of vampires or bats. I don't care. If it's wax with some kind of, I don't know, liquid. I'm not.
You almost can't. You almost can't count it as candy.
I know.
It's like, but it is, but it's not. It's like, well, who thinks of that as candy and gives that out? Why
Yeah,
did
that's
they
going
do
to have
that
to be
us?
my honorable mention because it wasn't on my list, but that is hot garbage.
When you
Hot garbage. It's cold, too. It's not even hot when you get a hold of it.
let's all do that. If someone mentions something that's not on our list, let's give it an honorable
Yeah,
mention.
And
because
can,
that's-
can you eat
Absolutely.
wax? Is it good for you? Is it all
Apparently,
right?
here's the thing. Someone told me the way you're supposed to do this is not bite the tip and drink the liquid. You're supposed to just chew the whole thing, and the liquid makes the wax taste better. I'm like, but it's wax. You're not going to eat it.
You're already losing when you have something that has to make something taste better already.
I'm like,
you're right.
Right? When
Yeah.
you got to explain it to
That's
me.
right. Yes, you had to put something on it to make it. He's right.
And when you get done and all the flavor's gone, you can make a candle.
And he's going to have a fit when I tell him my number 5, the worst one.
Yeah, my number 5's not too bad. Mine's candy corn.
So you're not a big candy corn fan.
Not a big candy corn fan. I mean, it's okay,
it's a-
but it's not my favorite. And it always came in those really thin plastic little
The little
bags.
tiny bag,
Yeah, and kind of like the M&Ms,
which
except
probably
M&Ms are
tasted
awesome.
better if we just eat the bag. I
Yeah,
don't know. I never tried to eat the
absolutely.
bag, but it might have tasted better.
Yeah,
if we
candy
did.
corn's just kind of tasteless nonsense.
Candy corn, it sneaks up on you because you eat it first. You're like, oh, that's okay. All of a sudden, oh no, this is not good. It
Do you
tastes
at
good
least
first.
put like do you do at least the vampire thing the first time? You have to at least make the fangs. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what they're good for.
Yeah, that's see, and that's why they're further down the list because they are practical.
See, there you go. That is the reason why it didn't make my list because I'm okay with it. It's kind of a meh. If we had a meh list where it's like, I'm not going to go seek it out, but I'm not going to reject it if you give it to me. But the first thing I'm doing is I'm sticking it in my teeth. And I get mad if I don't get it like right in the middle and like breaks. And I'm like, oh crap, I got to eat this one.
But as soon as Walt and I put them in there as vampire teeth, we just spit them in the garbage can. They serve their purpose and they're gone.
That's right.
It's all
It's kind
over.
of like you forgot to buy a
jump out, scare
costume, so you
mom.
just get some candy corns.
Now it's expendable. Candy corn, the most expendable candy in the world.
Walt, you're number 5?
That was my number 5. Candy corn.
Candy corn. That's right. Duh.
Candy corn. Mine.
That was such a great answer. I wanted to hear it again.
Oh, honorable mention as well. Candy corn.
Walt's like every candy except candy corn. No.
Every candy except candy corn.
No, that's not going to be on. You're not going to do that to us again, are you? No. My number 5 are the
Perfect timing.
Dude,
my number
you
5 are
almost
the.
spewed the board.
I almost did. That was close.
It's Halloween. It would have been scary. The candy bottle, the wax bottles. That's my number 5.
Yeah.
There's no way that the first time I tried them, I'm like, this is maybe try them again. I'm like, why? Every time I eat them, they're not going to get any better. Right. Little tiny. It's not even. What was it? 2 ounces of liquid in there in the little bottle.
Not even.
It's useless.
It's
totally
not
useless.
even.
It's a gimmick, is what it is.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, that's what.
Like I said,
that's my number 5.
You're apparently, though, I'm telling you, you're supposed to chew it all at once. And let the liquid squirt out while you're gnawing on wax.
Even when you say we've been doing it wrong all these years and we do it that way, it's still going to be bad.
Yes.
The only practical use for it is you have a few of those. It coats your intestines with wax. So then when you eat poison candy, you don't die.
Because of all the poison candy on Halloween. You're right.
Exactly.
Or now as adults, you don't have to worry about, you can drink a whole lot more.
That's right.
That's right.
I don't,
It's not even
I
right.
don't feel anything.
That's right.
All right, number 4. I'm going with Bit-O Honey. Not a big fan.
Yeah.
I always felt like there was sand in it. I'm not sure if it was like, I don't know what that was in there. And then it became like super sticky. And then I can't tell you the number of times I yanked the filling out as a kid.
You see them in the laboratory. Okay, we need some sugar, a little bit of honey.
No, the sugar melts too fast. We need something that can be gritty for like the entire time you're eating it.
Do you have the sand? Okay, yeah, put the sand in there. Grade A sand from the Gulf of Mexico.
No, Cheetos would make them worth eating.
Sand.
I could eat the Cheetos. I could at least lick the outside.
Bit-O honey sand.
I just, like suck them, and then when you get to the Bit-O honey part, spit that out.
There you go.
So, all right.
They're not great.
Number 4.
My number 4 is a nightmare. Those circus peanut things.
Oh, that's on a lot of lists.
It was like eating a packing peanut.
It was like someone went to go invent marshmallow and screwed up.
Right.
We're going to match on a few. I'm telling you right now. We are.
It's a lot firmer than a marshmallow, but it won't melt like a marshmallow. You can't make a s'more with a circus peanut. And don't think I haven't tried.
I actually don't know what they are. They're not peanuts, that's for sure. They just sort of look like it, but I have no idea what they're made out of.
Well, they should have just said, they're horrible and they taste like a shoe.
Okay.
It's like one step below the styrofoam they use for egg cartons.
Right.
Yeah. It's like tapioca pudding. When you look at the ingredients of tapioca pudding, it's blah, 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 water, sugar, blah, 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 milk, tapioca. I'm like, what is it, though? What is tapioca? It looks like little fish eggs, like caviar. What is tapioca?
Right.
No one's
These
been
are
able to tell
neither
me.
peanuts, nor are they as enjoyable
Nor are
as the
they circus.
Nor are they.
I can throw them at the circus. It's something. But that would be about it.
Those things were terrible.
They are. They're terrible.
Put this in a slingshot
Can you
from
tell
this distance. It'll leave a knock.
Can you tell you got a preview of what's on my list coming up too?
You too
It's
have
on there.
thought about.
So is that your number 4?
No, actually, my number 4 is candy corn, but we've already copied that. We've already covered it, so we'll go on to the next one.
All right, number 3. Any Brock product that's yellow hard candy.
That's another good coverage there. Blanket coverage.
Anything in that yellow cellophane, And I will tell you, I nearly died on one of those because I decided I was gonna put one in my mouth and try to drink, suck on it or whatever. Someone told me a joke. I inhaled and it got caught in my throat, and I was like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna die on the worst candy imaginable." And I eventually, somehow self-Heimlicked, and I remember chucking it in the toilet, and it came out. I was like, I will never, ever, 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 ever again.
Did you say all Brock candies at the Brock thing?
The Brock candies that come in the little yellow
cellophane.
cellophane.
All of the Brock
brand
candy. Okay.
The one that's like congealed, like lung butter yellow. Like you just hacked up this thing from a cold.
Butter yellow.
Okay.
Yeah, lung butter when you get a really bad cough, and then they dried it and it hardened. And
it's
then
not the butterscotch. It's not the butterscotch one.
No,
is it?
not butterscotch. I don't know what flavor it is. It's like
I'll take your word for it.
I don't know, butt.
But what?
Carcass.
Smells like but nothing. It just butt.
Okay. I'll take your word for that.
Number 3.
Good and plenty.
Oh, horrible.
Yeah, they were just not good. It was like you knew you were getting sugar, but it wasn't that enjoyable.
Good and plenty would be one of my dishonorable mentions.
A dishonorable mention.
It would, yes, on this list. It didn't make it, but it would
Didn't
be
make
there,
your
yeah.
list? Okay.
No, but there are some worse than that.
So what was your number 3 then?
My number 3 was circus peanuts. Again, I'm just getting there late, and we've already covered the ones that I'm getting to now. So, but after this one, mine's all new.
You just consider it all really, really bad.
Yes.
All right. Well, my number 2, and I can't believe that they saved this recipe. Like just recently, because it was going to go under. We had this story on your show.
Oh, that's right. I know what it is.
Nico wafers.
Yeah.
Look,
Those
I don't
things
need
are
you to take the big Crayola sidewalk chalk and cut it into little quarter-sized pieces and sell it to me as candy, okay?
We want to play hopscotch.
Because that is what that is.
We want to play
I
hopscotch.
can go outside and I can draw a hopscotch freaking
But we don't have any chalk.
with Nico wafers.
I got some Nico wafers.
I'm not even sure what flavor, because apparently it comes in chalk.
Right.
That's your flavor.
Right. It was just like blue. That was the
in a classroom, teacher's like, "Where's my chalk? It's missing. Here, Miss Smith, use some Nico wafers for your chalk."
Okay, first of all, I don't think candy should be pastel pale in any color shade. Okay, it just feels wrong.
And there was an uproar that they were going to take it off the market, and it came back. There's that many fans of that candy brand, Nico wafers. There's some lovers out there of it.
That's crazy.
Can you believe that?
No.
You don't always have to have taste, which is proof right there.
So yeah, and then it comes in like that weird wax paper. I mean, it just looks like old, even if it's brand new. It's like, how long has this been on the shelf? Like since 1924. You can't sell it. It's like a guy from World War I comes back and goes, "This was in my pack. I'm giving it back."
Hey man, I want some of the Nico wafers. 23 Skidoo, hubba hubba. Give me some of that. Yeah.
Well, I was talking to my dad about Vietnam, and I said, what are the things that you remember? And he was like, "You put Tabasco sauce on everything because that's the only way you could eat it." I don't even think it could save Nico wafers.
Actually, I think Nico wafers would disintegrate if we put Tabasco sauce on.
No,
would
honestly,
it just bubble
if you
up
gave
and
me
disappear?
the Tabasco and Nico wafers, I'm just going to chug the Tabasco. That's it.
Yeah, that's
all right. So that's my
we'll
number 3.
Throw them with the circus peanuts.
Yeah,
that was my number 2. Your number 2?
My number 2. It took me a while. I could not remember the name of this.
It was truly my number 2,
but it really is.
Nico wafers.
It's those cubed caramel cubes that are made by Milkmaid.
That come in the little wrappings, the little plastic wrappings.
Stuff.
They're kind of odd.
When I was a kid,
it would like pull teeth out.
See, when I was a kid, I loved those, but I liked the ones that came with the cream center better.
Those are better.
Yeah, those are better.
But I know the one. I know the ones Walter's talking about.
The ones you're talking about, I think you're supposed to only use those are like melting cubes for recipes, but we would just eat them as regular.
Put
candy.
them in like a cup
they
of coffee.
They were meant to be
something.
put into if you're going to put them in a pan to make a caramel dip or something.
But they sold them as candy though.
Yeah,
too.
They did.
They sold them as
and they're like
gave
perfect
them
little
away.
square cubes, aren't they? Yeah.
Yep.
I'd rather eat a beef bouillon with no water than to have one of those. If you have to have something square, just give me a beef bouillon in my mouth.
This could be made into soup, so it has
That's right, yeah.
You do that, you chase it with water, burp, you feel like you just had a nice bowl of beef soup.
That's right, some beef stock.
Or chicken.
That's right.
A bouillon cube.
Other than one of those square things.
Hey, I've got pure MSG running through these veins. By the way, I got a heck of a headache. I can't figure out what's going on. Give me another one of those bouillon cubes. Put that under my tongue. Go run a lap.
Well, we'd just get to where we'd wing them at each other. It became a weapon.
Terrible.
They came in a jar too, and they were all individually wrapped, but they still came in a jar.
And then you'd get them so they, if they were old enough, the plastic would just tear.
My grandmother used to cook everything that she could. Put some bouillon in. I'm not even sure what that is. What the heck is bouillon?
Same thing tapioca is. I don't know what either one of them are.
It's like condensed
salt.
It's
MSG, more salt, bouillon.
What is that, though? I know what MSG and salt is. And water. I know what that is. So, yeah.
All right, your number 2?
Number 2, anything. Here's one of my blankets. Anything gummy. I don't like gummy. I don't like gummy. I don't like dots. I don't like gummy bears. I don't like gummy cereal. I don't like gummy anything.
You some gummies you'll like.
Oh, yeah. We can change your mind in a
Do not like gummies. Well, have at it. Because I'll try anything.
You may not like the first one, but you won't remember eating the rest of them.
Yeah.
Great.
And hey, Chris, if you're listening, we'll be by later.
Good. Well, that's the only way I'll eat them then.
But oddly, they make you very hungry afterwards.
Good. Yeah, that's the only way I'll do it.
Guys, I know it's Halloween, but can we listen to The Wall?
And while we watch Wizard of Oz.
Oh man, we could put on like the Dark Side of the Moon, but wait like 32 seconds and then start Wizard of Oz. You can have a crazy man on your lawn.
So you don't like anything gummy?
No, none of the gummy stuff. Never have liked
that. So it's a texture thing for you because I love like the Sour Patch anything like
now,
sour worms.
I do
Sour
like
Patch Kids.
I do like sour candy, like the Warheads and stuff like that, and the sour apple things. That's totally different.
Okay, so it's the gummy like that, but you can handle Skittles, which is a little harder than a gummy.
Skittles are okay, but I don't seek them out either. No,
okay.
I don't taste the rainbow.
You know what about the soft? What about the soft sweet tarts? Like the chewable sweet tarts.
They're okay. Yeah, they're all right. Yeah.
So you're not into big into the sugar thing. You rather have the chocolate.
I didn't like pixie sticks. All they were sticks full of sugar.
Yeah, that's exactly
all
right.
It was.
I just upend those things.
But I did like the fun dip, the one that came with the dip thing in the bag, and you just dipped it in there and ate it, and the rings.
We used to get those at the baseball field.
Yeah, those are great. I'd be running 24 hours after.
Oh yeah,
had a pack of that.
My number 1. The one that would make me gag, retch,
the big horrible
that
ones.
I will not eat. I don't care. I'll put it out for the mice. It's good and plenty. That is my number one.
Yeah.
I do not
Another
like black
dishonorable mention.
licorice. I have never been able to figure out how to like black licorice. I won't eat anything that even is similar to it. It reminds me of Vicks Formula 44D when we grew up. That's what it tastes like.
Creamulsion.
I mean, like, at least that gets you drunk. So you can at least say, I have a cold, and like,
right.
And they say, "What? Are you drunk?" No, just gotta.
I never
just
got
sick.
drunk as a kid. I don't know if he did. I don't think I.
You didn't know it.
Oh, was I? I didn't know it. Okay.
Oh, my mom and dad used to give me these things called hottie toddies.
Oh wow.
A little orange juice,
Kinda help you
a little
sleep.
honey,
Yeah.
and a little whiskey. And I thought, man, that orange juice tastes funny hot.
Yeah.
It's funny how I didn't know about that. Or
Cold
the,
really went away fast.
I didn't know about that. Or
I
the green
really do
M&Ms.
feel sleepy. I should go take a nap.
Explain that along with the green M&Ms to me after the break.
So if this is what I feel like with just a little hottie toddy, can I have a lot of hottie toddy?
Yeah.
Look at what they created. Sorry, every day.
And they ask him why he drinks.
Exactly.
I'm pickled through and through.
Exactly.
That's why I didn't get sick.
Well,
your
my
number one?
one is Now and Laters.
Now and
Those
later.
are terrible. I'll agree with you. I don't like those.
Are
either.
those like
Those are
like
awful.
supposed to be taffy but super hard, like ridiculously hard?
Yep. And,
Okay.
and they were the kind of thing that when you saw them, you were like, if I say anything, my mom's going to kill me. And then you get down the street and they're like, Now and Laters. I got Now and Laters.
Got now and later.
And were
like
they the
it's
same
taken up-
shape as Good and Plenty's?
Yeah, I think so.
They were very.
No, they came in square. I thought they were square.
They're
square,
square.
okay.
They're like the size
They
of a
came in
like
this
a
weird
Starburst.
packaging.
Yeah, it came like 4 or
Yeah.
5 in a
Oh, wow,
package.
okay.
So they were individually wrapped, and there was like 4 or 5 of them in a
Right.
plastic wrapping. Yeah,
Wow. I remember having them and I didn't like them either.
I'll
They
give
were
that
not
a
good.
dishonorable mention because
Yeah.
it was too hard.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep.
So
And just
your number
not good.
one, BK?
My number one candy that I hate and will always hate and always will and always did and will never love. And I don't care what color it is, what form it comes in. If it's got the word licorice attached to it, I hate it.
Yeah.
I don't like any
So
of
that
that. It could be
encompasses
red.
good and plenty. Oh, you don't like red either.
It could be red Twizzlers. I'm not going to. I mean, I'll use a Twizzler as a straw, but that's it. I'm not going. I'm not
do
going to
like-
eat it. I'll just use it as a straw and then
I
I'll
will
throw it
do
away.
that
So licorice to you is kind of like a clown to Eric.
No, not that bad. I would eat licorice before he would hang around a cloud, I think. I actually think I would. There's no way he's going to do that. I started saying I'd eat licorice before he'd eat a clown, but that wouldn't work. But yeah,
All
that's,
right. Does anybody have anybody else have another dishonorable mention? Because I've got one.
you have another one?
And it reminded me of it when I thought of Bit of Honey. Do you remember the candy Mary Jane's?
Mary
Oh,
Jane. Yeah, those are very
yeah.
old.
They're really old.
Yeah.
They remind me of the Now and Laters, how they were wrapped up, but the Mary
Yeah.
Jane's, that's also, it's packaged sawdust.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
I would eat them before licorice, though. I
You would
really
eat them
would.
before licorice.
I would eat them before licorice.
And those kind of go along with like anything that your grandmother got for Halloween that was still
Right.
left in March.
Yeah, you
Right.
go visit for Easter, and there's still a bowl, and they're all like stuck together in the
Right.
bowl.
And
And
the
those-
Mary Janes could have been there since the
They could
1900s,
have.
the early
They very
1900s.
They
well
too
could
came
have.
from over
They could be, yeah.
there with the Great World War.
That's right.
That's exactly yes. The Great War. They're brought back by the troops.
Over there, over there.
The troops are home and they brought some kind of disturbing candy.
We couldn't eat these. I walked through mustard gas, and I ain't eating these.
They cure trench foot though.
They did cure.
Try and figure.
You know what? Oh my God, super absorbent. You just stick that there in a soggy sock, and boom, you are good to go.
Oh, you don't mean eat it, put it in
Yeah.
the shoe. That's all it's good for.
Nothing like a good absorbent candy. You definitely, if nothing else, you want your candy to be absorbent.
It goes in the size of like the size of a Starburst. You get it out, it's like the size of a sponge. It's just full of foot sweat and trench rot.
What is this? This is not nougat.
Oh, I hope that's not how they discovered what nougat is. That would be bad.
Still good though, isn't it? Even if that's how they found out, it's still good.
Kept Mark Spitz in the '76
Hey,
Olympics.
you know the funny thing about circus peanuts is my mom loves them though. It's her favorite.
You know,
it was one of her favorite.
Everything
candies.
that we said, there's someone out there listening that goes, "How can that make your
there
list?"
is.
Yeah, I know.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
I know people who love black licorice. I'm like, oh God. I don't even drink.
see, I
What's
could
the
give or take it.
alcohol?
I
What's
don't-
the alcohol that tastes like black licorice?
The stuff that I don't buy.
Gosh, it's on the tip of my tongue. It's there's like a deer on the logo.
Yeah, it's And I can tell you why I can't remember.
I need one of our listeners to put it on our Facebook page or something that's listening right now. It's Jägermeister. Jaeger. Oh!
Jägermeister.
Now, I have been drunk enough to take a Jaeger shot, but I have to have a whole lot of prep ahead of time. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have to be already 3 sheets to the wind and not realize that, we're doing Jaeger shots? Yeah, Jaeger bomb. All right, I got a short story I got to tell quickly before we wrap up.
Chris Pocase just said Jägermeister.
Jägermeister. Okay, here we go. I got one for you. We're all pet lovers here. We all love our four-legged friends. Mommy told me never, ever go down in the basement. But I wanted to see what was making the noise. It kind of sounded like a puppy, and I wanted to see the puppy. So I opened the basement door and tiptoed down just a bit. I didn't see a puppy, and then Mommy yanked me out of the basement and yelled at me. Mommy had never yelled at me before, and it made me sad, and I cried. Then Mommy told me again, never go into the basement. And as a treat, to try to buy my obedience, gave me a cookie. That made me feel better. In fact, it made me feel good enough that I didn't ask her why the boy in the basement was making those noises with no hands or feet.
Okay.
That's it. It wasn't a puppy.
Just another day at the house for me growing up.
You finding these on the dark web, I assume.
Yeah.
These are not normal internet.
Oh, no, these are real stories.
Okay, good.
Dark chocolate
true
web.
stories.
This is the licorice web.
It's the licorice web.
It's terrible. Not dark.
All right, 1 hour done and in the books.
What?
Another hour or 2 hours to go on. Welcome back, everyone, to our Halloween Spooktacular. Alan Sanders here, along with Walt in the Darkness. We got BK on the air, having a good time here in our studios. Had it on cue, so that's why it was so loud. I was like, I'm fading the music, and it's not going anywhere. Everybody else heard it fade, but I'm like, God, that won't go away.
All of a sudden, want to rent a room somewhere at a hotel somewhere.
No, I don't want to do that
cabin
now.
Cabin one.
I'm having the exact
cabin
opposite.
number one.
Like, we have a room. No, it's okay. You know what? I'm going to sleep in the car. I'm going to sleep outside.
Have you met my
chance with the bears?
Have you met my mother?
Mother!
She's sitting right up there in the window. She never moves.
Is there an all-time better parody of that scene than in High Anxiety?
Nope.
Not of that scene. I don't think there's any other scene that parodies
that. It's like, it's not shot for shot, but you want your paper?
But it's
called. Your paper?
Yeah.
He's so mad at him.
Good old Bill
and then
Brooks.
You got the ink from the paper. It's like the same thing as the blood circle in the drain. We got somebody calling. Let's go to the phone. Somebody wants to join in our Halloween Spooktacular. Good evening. You're on the air. Who's this?
Oh, it's me. I just thought I would call in. I know I'm a little early. It's Lezlie. Okay. It's Lezlie Sawyer.
Hey, Lezlie Sawyer.
Yeah,
you are BK's guest. BK, why don't I let you introduce? We can go ahead and do our guest early. That's fine.
Hey, look, it's Lezlie Sawyer.
Hey, look who's joining us.
Good to hear.
I thought what was going to happen was it was just going to plug me into your show, and I'd be listening to your show until you introduced me, and then I was going to start talking.
That's fine.
See, normally a show like this would have a producer somewhere in the other room doing that, but nobody wanted to work past 9 o'clock on Halloween, only us. So
we like to call ourselves kind of like WKRP in Cincinnati here, but we're not that good.
But we're not quite so good.
Not quite that good. It is Lezlie.
You're better.
That's right. Lezlie with a Z. She spells her first name Lezlie with a Z. You know, Lezlie, thanks for calling in. And I appreciate Joey Reynolds with Geek Radio America for actually mentioning, hey, I know a lady in Cartersville named Lezlie Sawyer. And I'm like, you do? So do I. I can't believe that we know the same person. And that was great for him to put us together like that.
It is a small world.
Lezlie is you wear many hats, Lezlie. You're a cosplayer. You impersonate Elvira better than just about anybody I've ever seen.
Well, thank you.
You've done a lot of audio adventures. You've got a Star Trek I think, audio recording coming up.
Yes, I do.
And you played, I think, a captain in a Star Trek short film as well. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. Yes, you have your facts.
Hey, that's I got to be prepared, sort of. That's
you are prepared.
And he guessed at all that.
I guessed.
That came from out of nowhere. It's amazing. It's like osmosis.
I said, Lezlie, can you send me your resume in an email? Sure, I can do that.
Okay.
Well, we share the love of Star Trek. We also share the love of Halloween and horror films and stuff like that. And you've done quite a bit of theater and television and whatnot too. But you're local here and you live in Cartersville. And we thought we'd have you call in and share some of your Halloween memories and horror films and candies with us and tap your brain and see what you thought about it. If you had to pick your favorite horror film, Lezlie, we're going to be talking about them coming up too. What movie still scares you to this day? I'm not talking about when you were a kid and it scared you, and it really doesn't now. But what movie can you still watch to this day and it gives you a chill up your neck?
I'll be honest with you. It's an oldie but a goodie. The movie Psycho just freaked me out.
We just played the music.
Played the theme.
That is funny.
That's a good choice.
Yeah, I would have to say, honestly, Psycho. It just never gets old, even though I know exactly what's going to happen.
Right.
It just freaks me out. I just feel like everything about that movie was so well made, and the acting and the cinematography, obviously Alfred Hitchcock is just so phenomenal. I mean, what can you say? It's like I remember as a kid seeing Psycho, and the first time I saw it, completely freaked me out. But even to this day, it just does. It just has something about it. When that woman goes down the stairs and she's, turns the chair around, and
right.
you see the skeleton. It's just everything. It's just like, oh my God! And then he's like, in the very end when he's like, I wouldn't even hurt a fly. It's so creepy. It's
then
like,
he looks directly into the camera there at the end, and they superimpose the skull.
Yeah, because the reason being, honestly, is I feel like that's something it could happen in real life. That's why it freaks me out.
Well, it was
that could really happen.
Based on a true story, by the way, of a guy named Ed Gein, which was in his own right
Ed was a
crazy.
Mess.
Also, and it.
Well,
there's
like I mean, the
mess.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies are based off of him. If I'm not
Right.
mistaken.
Everybody had their shot at the old
He's
Ed
the go-to. He's your go-to guy.
Well, Hitchcock did something shocking with Psycho. He killed his leading lady in the first 20 or 30 minutes of the film, and that just drove everybody crazy back then. Well, you know what? I've seen some shots of you as Elvira at Dragon Con and whatnot. What made you want to dress up like Cassandra Peterson and be Elvira?
Well, I wish I had just some sort of an awesome, incredible thing to tell you about that. There's actually a TV show that is in the works. It's called Girls Gone Geek, and the gentleman who owns the rights to it, he's the guy who's trying to get it up and running. He said it was actually his brainchild. He said, Lezlie, would you be willing to dress up as Elvira and maybe do a few little snippets for like a little commercial type thing for Girls Gone Geek, wearing an Elvira costume? And I'm like, sure, I was fine with that. Okay, no problem. So I did, and I went ahead and filmed a few things for him. I filmed a bunch, actually, so he could pick and choose what he really liked. So he created a few memes out of them, and he also did put out on YouTube like a little commercial type thing for Girls Gone Geek. It's still sort of in the developmental process. Right now, Netflix and Fox are actually interested in it, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed. It would be awesome, if it would get picked up. But that's where that whole Elvira thing came from. But hey, to be honest with you, when I put it on and I did my little thing for Girls Gone Geek, I was like, gee, I don't look half bad.
Yeah, it's
I was like, I didn't really think of it on my own.
It's fantastic. You've got some great pictures of it. Now you've also appeared in Sleepy Hollow as an extra. You've been in the Vampire Diaries, 24 Legacy, and you were also in I Am Legend, the movie in 2017. Is that right?
Yep, that is correct.
Fantastic. I want to go back though before it gets too late here and talk about Star Trek Chronicles that's coming out. I think in is it 2020 when that's being released?
It's coming out. I don't have an exact date yet set for it. The man who produced it said that it actually is going to come out in January of 2020, but I don't have a specific date yet for it. But yes, it is an 18-episode audio Star Trek series, and when he sent me the script, I mean, to tell you the truth, I fell in love with it because it's very different. It's almost like a Sherlock Holmes type of a story. It is very much immersed in all kinds of mystery, and like it's a whodunit. I play a Vulcan.
Right.
I do have one of the starring roles in it, and what had happened is my grandfather got murdered. And there's a lot of things. There's even little spin-off stories. It's not just totally revolving around my grandfather getting murdered and trying to figure out who did that. There's also other stories involved.
Well, that's fantastic.
I love very Star complex. Trek. Really, I just thought it was such an interesting story and lots of surprises. It has a lot of twists and turns that nobody would really be able to figure out.
Well, we share a love of Star Trek. They just showed the Cat's Paw episode not too long ago because it was kind of like their Halloween episode.
Right, it's the
Star
Halloween
Trek,
one.
Had the witches and stuff like that. But Lezlie, do you have a place on the internet where people can find out, tell everybody where you are and what you do, where they can see?
Well, for right now, in all honesty, I actually am trying to work and develop an actual, like a fan page type of a thing where it's only going to be talking about my work, but it's really not up and running yet. But the thing is, honestly, I post for right now until I can kind of get that up and running. Just Lezlie Sawyer. It's L-E-Z as in zebra, L-I-E, and Sawyer like in Tom Sawyer, S-A-W-Y-E-R. I'm on Facebook, and just go to my Facebook page, and definitely whenever anything I do comes out, I always post it on my wall and give links as to how you can get to my movies or whatever I've done.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Fantastic, Lezlie. It's good to have you on the show tonight and having you check in. I appreciate you calling in. And you're local here in Cartersville, and people need to know that we got some local folks doing stuff like this around the Cartersville area. We're gonna get back now. I appreciate it, and hey, stay away from Bates Motel, okay?
I will. Trust me.
All right, we'll see you out there. Look forward to continued correspondence with you, Lezlie.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Right. Thanks so much for joining us on our Halloween Spooktacular.
Oh my gosh! Happy Halloween to everybody.
All right, take care, Lezlie. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Yes, thank you. Okay, bye bye.
Awesome. There we go. That was cool. I didn't realize how much stuff she was in that was
she's got a lot coming up.
Not cosplay related.
Yeah, she's got a lot of audio adventures. And you know what's fun about doing audio adventures is because it's audio. We're familiar with that. We don't have to care. We don't care what we look like to come in here to the studio to record stuff. We don't have to put on anything. We don't have to dress up. I mean, we never dress up.
Speak for yourself.
This is dressed up for you. That's right. I forgot about that.
He's at least got clothes on.
He's got clothes on.
We should be thankful.
Oh, he's wearing khaki shorts tonight.
That's
okay, good.
Oh, he got the dress. The dress shorts came out.
That's right. Yeah, he's wearing socks.
You should have seen what I had on earlier.
I'm sorry. I noticed you have on socks.
Yes,
tonight.
I do actually.
That's right.
I played pet detective today, so I actually had to go home and change.
Well, I think it's great that she brought up Psycho because Psycho is one of those films. I saw Psycho when I shouldn't have when I was a kid. She said she saw it when he was a kid. Mm-hmm. I saw Jaws when I was a kid. I should not have seen Jaws when I watched it because I was way too young to watch it. Because what did it do? It scared the crap out of me for months after that, about wanting to go in the water. And Psycho did it for showers. Jaws did it for going into the water.
Yeah.
A lot of movies will
I still have a hard time classifying Jaws. We talked about this last Saturday on your show. I have a hard time classifying Jaws as a horror movie. It's got horrific moments. It's got moments that will scare you and hang with you.
Right.
But I could argue it's every bit as much as an adventure movie.
And it's certainly a drama, thriller. Yeah. I mean, there's all of that mixed in. But you're right. It's a potpourri of all of that.
Yeah, it doesn't really fit in one category.
Potpourri, as I used to say.
Potpourri,
if you will.
Well, you were from Alabama. We've established this.
I should not mispronounce English, the King's English, because we have an English person in the studio now. I don't want to massacre her.
We'll get him. We had him. He's early, which is good. He can sit back and chill, relax. Take it easy. You want a Reese's peanut butter cup? No. He's like, apparently that does not make his
Not
top
on
five.
his
That's
top five.
British sign language. I didn't understand what
Yeah,
you
no,
said.
you know what?
That one I understand.
I figured out what that meant without
number
any
one.
explanation whatsoever.
We're number one. That's what that means.
All right, I want to do this then. Let's go on with our list till the bottom of the hour here because we're going to take a break and then we will have author J.W. Webb joining us after the bottom of the hour. A Brit who's over here. He's come over to Yankland and he's with us Yanks over here, and we're going to talk about The Haven. And he'll tell you how you can get that. We'll also talk about some of his scary stories growing up. But for now, we're talking about movies. We had our guest talk about Psycho was the one that kind of scared her.
I can't believe she chose Psycho, and we just played. I did not plan it that way.
No, we
by the
did
way.
not. I can guarantee that because I was over here running the board.
It's a
I had
Psycho
no
music
knowledge.
by Bernard Herrmann.
Let's go with our 5 top scary movies. Like if we have to pick, we're going to watch movies in October. We're going to pick our Halloween favorites. This would round out our top 5 that we would like to see. It's not to say that there aren't other movies we'd watch, but of our top 5 favorite scary Halloween flavored kind of movies. We'll start with you all. We'll go around instead of me starting. We'll let you start. Number 5.
Number 5 is Halloween.
John Carpenter.
John Carpenter. It's a great one, man, and it it definitely scared the crap out of me the first 2 or 3 times I saw it. So
And
I stopped watching.
Halloween is great because there's really nothing supernatural about it. It's just a guy escapes from an asylum and he starts killing people, and that's what it's about.
That's right.
It gets
Which
back
makes
to
it
family.
more realistically, horrifyingly scary.
Right.
Yeah. BK?
Well, number 5, I'm going to start with a movie from way back in 1922. I've gained more respect over this film over so many years, and it was almost destroyed because they ordered it destroyed, and they shouldn't have filmed it from copyright infringement on Bram Stoker's Dracula. It's a German movie called
Yes.
Nosferatu. It's a silent film, and it's in black and white, but I still don't think I can watch Nosferatu in the middle of the night with nobody at home and all the lights off.
Can I
'cause its
tell you-
imagery is
That
it's
guy,
terrifying.
the actor, whatever his ailment that they hired to be.
Max Schreck.
Yes, Max Schreck. I saw the In Search Of, and that was enough to make me scared of
yeah.
that movie.
Yeah.
It's just a very scary movie. If you don't like movies because they're silent or black and white, then you don't know what you're missing. You're limiting yourself on motion pictures.
That is still one of the creepiest just looking figures, period.
It is, and they
I mean,
remade
and
it.
you think his silhouette's
79.
bad? When he's fully lit is worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you see it out of his makeup, he's pretty creepy looking too, out of the makeup itself. But they tried to remake it in '79 with Werner Herzog, a German director, which was almost shot for shot with Klaus Kinski, but it wasn't as creepy as the original. It just wasn't.
No, it lacked that. And maybe because of the black and white, and maybe because of just the atmosphere of the way the film kind of looked a little faster than normal.
It's just
not
creepy.
right.
Yeah, it's otherworldly. Yeah, it's uneasy.
All right,
Yes.
my number 5 was one of those movies I saw when I was far too young to see it, and I saw it anyway. Amityville Horror.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
You saw that when you were young. That was
I
bad
saw that
too.
when I was 9 or 10 years old.
Wow.
I'm
And-
betting that just about every movie on all these lists we saw when we were
We should not have watched them.
That's
Yeah.
probably why it's on this list.
Yeah.
The big thing about this with this movie, because remember when the guy kept seeing the faces in the fireplace?
Right. Oh, yeah.
So my dad had just finished off our basement in Michigan because we had an unexpected brother on the way. And so we finished the basement, and my brother and I, who had a room upstairs, moved downstairs. And the big thing in that time was to do wood paneling. So when the lights were off and you're looking at all the wood kind of grain and swirls, I swear I could see faces at night in the wood paneling after watching that movie. I swore that there were faces staring at me. I probably for 2 weeks didn't get a good night's sleep. I was just, and I couldn't go tell my mom and dad why,
Right.
Because I snuck the movie. See, I would have had to have admitted I did something I was told not to do. So the
course.
fear of being beat, I just said, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and
bigger fear.
sit here in my own puddle of fear.
And now in 2019, wood paneling in a house is even more horrific for other reasons.
now
at
that's
this
what's the
point.
horrifying
that's
thing.
Right.
All right, number 4, Walt.
Pet Cemetery.
Ooh, not the remake, right?
No, not the remake.
Oh, wow.
No,
The one with Fred Gwynn.
The one with Herman Munster, yeah.
Right, the original. Yeah, that movie just freaked me out.
come back.
Sometimes dead's better.
That's better.
That's right.
You turned into Pepperidge
Yeah,
Farm.
thanks.
That has another creepy pet thing to it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like our pets are coming back. You know, that's just even creepy. And then the little boy comes.
Could be the little boy downstairs with no
Yeah.
hands or feet,
Right.
Exactly.
Let's not talk about that anymore.
whining like
That's
a
pretty
puppy.
bad. Yeah, that's pretty
Didn't realize his
creepy.
mouth was sewn shut.
That is so creepy.
All right, BK.
Wow, number 4. Number 4 to me is a John Carpenter movie, and I think it's my favorite movie of his. For me, I think my favorite John Carpenter movie is The Fog.
I need to rewatch that.
That's
I
my honorable
love The
mention.
Fog. The Fog
It's
is
a great
just
movie.
everything about it. Fog in itself is creepy anyway.
Yeah.
You know, you just drive out. Oh, there's fog out there. Oh, what's in it? Anything
What's
could
in
be
it?
in there? You know, and we had a fog alert. Was it yesterday morning? National weather
Couple
service,
days we've
couple
had
days.
dense fog advisories.
Just the fact that there was a shipload of lepers that they banished to an island and made them go away on this boat, and now they're coming back to reclaim the gold that they made into a cross for that church, and they're coming back and they're killing everybody in this
But
town.
that's Australia. That's not close to here.
It's is it really? Hey,
I don't know. It gave me pause every time fog rolled in. It didn't matter.
then you have
There's no lighthouse. I think we're okay.
Yeah,
It doesn't
we're
matter.
good.
then you have the beautiful Adrienne Barbeau playing Stevie Wayne on the radio, to
Yeah.
check out while she was
Well, that's because she was married to the
like
director.
John Carpenter. That's right.
Yes.
So The Fog for me, it will always be incredibly creepy. and
All right, for me, my number 4 is the based on Stephen King, The Shining. That's in my top 5. I love that movie, and it's not because it's necessarily scary watching it. It sticks with you.
Yes.
It gives you images that hang with you days after watching that movie.
This is going to be like the candy thing, because you're going to choose the ones that are on my list before we
Right.
get to mine, and they'll already
okay,
be
but you're
talked
giving them
about.
higher prominence.
They'll already be talked about. That's right. So yeah, The Shining is
right.
very creepy.
Walt, you're number 3.
The Exorcist.
Tubular Bells, dude. I can't listen to that and not start getting chills.
No. That movie just, and coming from a religious background and kind of always having this supernatural thing in my brain, I think I could watch it now, and I'm too young to watch it.
Yes, very much so. Yes.
Still too young.
I mean, and now, some of the effects don't really stand up, but good grief, that is a scary
No.
movie.
The only one that doesn't
freak
stand
you
up to
out.
me is the head turn. But even when I was a
Yeah.
kid, saw the head turn, I freaked out.
It's almost like the principle of the thing. Like you're like, that's not real, but oh my gosh.
You want to see something funny? And I don't know, it was circulating YouTube recently because of, or not YouTube, Facebook, because it's Halloween. They had a clip from 1973 of a reporter going to movie theaters in New York, interviewing people
Yeah.
walking out of the theater saying, I just needed a minute before I can go back in there.
Yeah.
And one person he interviewed goes, this is my 3rd time. I still can't make it through the movie. Now, for me, I was 12. I still made it through the movie. Now, once again, I had nightmares for a couple of weeks after, but
Should we still keep talking about The Exorcist before we get to your number 1?
no.
Okay.
We're talking about it now.
But it's
What's your
I know him. So
Yeah,
that's
right.
That's why I know.
Well, what's your number
on
3?
there. My number 3 is Poltergeist.
Yes.
1982.
Now, yes.
Okay.
But I will. Yeah. There's no remakes.
No
on here.
remakes, okay.
These films sometimes some of them will change positions, but they're always going to be on that list somewhere. But for me, Poltergeist. What can you say about Poltergeist? Because you guys have done a podcast on it. It's such a well made film about what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
It's so well looking. It's got a great score. I know we're going to talk about music later on here in the show, but everything about it falls into the category of, to me, near perfect horror film, because it's got a little more than that. It's not just horror. It's more. It's a magical, mysterious movie too. It's got little shiny little ghost lights in it too. It's not a slasher movie, but it's definitely a terror-filled horror film. Because what was the tagline of Poltergeist? It knows what scares you. That's enough right there.
Also, they're here.
They're here. Yeah.
And
the less popular Poltergeist 2, they're back.
I
So
do
it
love
didn't
that
work
movie,
as
but
good.
I'm going to wait till the next round to talk about it, because I'm going to say my number 3 is Alien. 1979's Alien.
He's doing it to me again.
Still to this day, 40 years later, they just had the Fathom Events anniversary showing of it. I don't like the director's edition. I don't like the additional footage. I don't like seeing more of the creature.
No.
I think it's kind of neat in a documentary style to think about it.
Or at the end,
But-
like a separate
just
viewing.
some of it is just kind of
Yeah.
neat. But when I watched that version just recently, it kind of wasn't as good.
It drags it down while
It does,
Ripley's
and
trying
shows
to run
too
away.
much
You're
of the
right,
creature
yes.
early, and it just doesn't. And it doesn't make sense where she is in the ship and running around. It just kind of throws everything kind of off.
And I will say the flip side, how good Aliens was with James Cameron. Some of the extra scenes in Aliens actually did help it a little bit, but it was fun to
Not
see.
all
what
of them, though.
Not all of them. They make the movies the way they
All
are.
right,
For
we
a
only got
reason.
90 seconds. We may have to drag this into a little bit of our
drag
talk
it.
with JW Webb. But what's your number 2, Walt? We may save our number 1s for bottom of the hour.
Silence of the Lambs.
I didn't even think about that.
Wow.
Good. That's a bonus honorable mention. That is a great movie.
Yeah, that is a great movie.
It doesn't really creep me out, though. I mean, not like in the way like these movies did, where I couldn't sleep. I just thought it was so engaging.
You know what creeps me out about it is my dad was in the FBI when they were developing that whole unit.
Profile.
And so I know vividly that those people exist. And so you're watching it and you're like, that's horrifying that they could come up with a movie like this about real people.
About what really some people have done.
And I'll second you that it is very scary only because it is realistic and it's real life.
No, it's great.
We've already
2?
covered it. I can name my number 2 pretty quick. Alien is number 2 for me. Alien, Gothic. How much better Gothic horror can you do than put an alien in space?
You know you've got a good movie when you can show, like I showed my girls this a few years ago, and it still holds up. The technology, the look, the feel, the effects, the tension, it still works 40 years later. You've got a good movie.
I'm 53 years old, and Alien still makes me feel uneasy and scary when I watch it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, with 20 seconds left, my number 2, Poltergeist. My all-time favorite ghost story movie. Favorite movie to watch at Halloween, and I'll say this again quickly. It had 2 times it scared me. The first time as a kid it scared me because it was a ghost story. The second time it scared me as an adult because I had kids, and I can't imagine what those parents went through knowing your kid was being stalked by some demonic thing and you couldn't do a thing to help her. It's 10:30, bottom of the hour. We're going to take a break. We got more coming your way next, including our number 1s and author J.W. Webb. Welcome back, everybody. 10:33 the time here on AM 1450, 100.3 FM, WBHF for our Halloween Spooktacular. Already halfway through, going straight to the witching hour. Before we get to our number 1 movies, and we're going to have our guest in studio joining us, author J.W. Webb, I wanted to give you another story real quickly. A story from my grandmother. My grandmother grew up in the slums of Prohibition-era Chicago. Her family lived in a small house near the harbor, and one of her earliest memories was of a particularly hot summer when, seeking respite from the heat, she and her sister discovered a seldom-used section of boardwalk near an abandoned warehouse. Every night for several weeks, the 2 girls would make their way down to the docks and sit together on the edge of the pier as the sun went down. My grandmother vividly, and for a time fondly, recalled the feel of the seaweed between her toes as she and her sister dangled their feet into the murky water. It wasn't until years later when she returned to the pier and found that the warehouse had been demolished. Curious, she made an inquiry to the Department of Planning and Development. Apparently, the warehouse had been owned for a time by the mob, who was using it as a base of operations for a local prostitution racket. It had only been uncovered when an associate began disposing of rival hookers by fitting them with concrete shoes and dumping them into the harbor. Investigating officers had discovered nearly 24 bodies from the waters of a secluded pier nearby. Now, how had the bodies been discovered? A passing fisherman spotted some of the victims' hair floating near the surface like seaweed.
I don't know why I brought a change of underwear, but I'm going to go change. I'll be back.
Good thing, too. There you go. There's a creepy story. You want to know how creepy that story is? The reason why I picked that story to read? You may remember this, and JW, you will too, because it happened in this area last summer. There was a story of a guy who threw his 10-year, stepdaughter, she had been killed here, and then threw her over the bridge from I-75 into Lake Allatoona to dispose of the body. And it was found later. The very weekend she was found, I had been fishing in that area, and I thought to myself, I could have snagged the body at any point in time, had no idea that where I was kayaking, that very spot was where they were going to find the body of the girl that had been thrown off the bridge on I-75 into Lake Allatoona.
Wow.
Those are things that made me just go,
yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Creepy. J.W. Webb, author, good evening. How are you?
This is such a racy show.
Racy?
Racy. I mean, something about that.
Wait a minute. We may be using that word differently.
Well, I mean exciting. I mean,
okay, is that what that means?
We're only cheeky. We're cheeky on Saturday. On Saturday, we're cheeky.
There's a lot lost. There is a lot lost in translation.
Yes.
We're taking a vacation, not a holiday.
It's a good thing we both enjoy the same beverages. That way it doesn't matter what we're talking about 4 or 5
Well,
in.
you think we enjoy the same beverages.
Well-
but, I've tried some of yours, Alan, and,
Now, wait a minute. I schooled you on yours. When you told me, you're like, this is the light one. I'm like, no, this is the dark one. And you're like, no, it's not. And they're like, oh, yeah, it is.
I always prefer the dark side.
Yes. All right. I wanted to invite you back to join us with our Halloween Spooktacular. First off, let's go ahead and plug. I want this right off the bat. Let's plug your book because you are doing a special through Halloween, which is tonight, for the Haven.
For the Haven, yeah. And thank you. That's my little ghost story, which is a complete one-off because I normally write weird fantasy stuff. So this is entirely different, and I like to put it free during Halloween. And it's
free. I thought it was $1, so it's free.
Were you trying to? You said it was $1. No, it's free. It's absolutely. What's this guy like?
I was trying to.
It's absolute.
I was trying to make some
It's
cash. on
free.
the
No.
side. Sorry. So it's a digital download you can get for free.
Yes, it's a digital download. You can buy a paperback as well, but you can get the digital download for free. That's a hard word to say, digital.
Yeah, depends how much you've been drinking.
Yeah, that's the problem. You see it. That's the problem. Zippo.
You know what? It's online. It's electronic.
It's a DD.
It's a D. I love a double D.
It's not,
Double
it's
dime.
not paper.
No, it's free.
Hey, we're back to Elvira.
It's free. It's just a little book. It's kind of a short story, and it's set in Cornwall, which is a part of England where I used to live a while back, which is the wild western rugged coast of England, kind of like the Big Sur but without the sunshine. And it's very Halloween-esque because it's full of Arthurian legends and weird sort of cromlechs and dolmens, which are basically funny stones that people used to live under. They call those people kind of pixies now, or piskies is the Cornish pixie.
I know a few people who live under rocks.
But
now.
don't take the
I've
piskie.
often been
Yeah.
mistaken for a Cornish pixie, but that's a whole different story. Generally, because I'm shorter than everybody, and
I thought
You
it
just
was
need
where
to
you're
drink more
hanging
Cornish
out.
ale
I
and
didn't
you get
think-
you're fully grown. But anyway, it's set actually in 2 times, and it's set in the modern period, and also say about 10 years ago, and also in Victoriana. So there's 2 twin threads running together. So it's just a little ghost story. It's very creepy, and there's a little thing about violets in it.
in the story.
The flower, not
Okay.
violet as in a lady, but as in a little flower.
You're turning violet.
Violet is violet.
So let me ask you this, because we just talked about one of the movies that we loved, and we're gonna circle back around to our number ones, and we'll let you add in so you can think about it. You probably have been thinking what your number one scary movie might be. BK mentioned earlier The Fog, and we talked about just something about not knowing what's in the fog. It always kind of brings up dread. England has its share of fog. Did you ever have those kind of stories about things in the fog?
Every day I went to work. I used to work at the cheese plant on top of the moor, Bodmin Moor. And a cheese plant was basically a technical term for a dairy factory. And I used to pick up dairy from the farms. And I used to go to these farms nights, like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. And you would, there was basically 24 wheels of metal, and you're backing down and you go into the dairy and you creep around. And you can just imagine how this would play with your conscience. And I would say, particularly from sort of Halloween through till May, 3 out of 4 days was fog, thick fog. So you're creeping through. And I'll tell you what, one of the worst things that happened to me, this isn't strictly Halloween, but it was very scary, is I was bending over.
No.
No,
Wait a minute,
not in the.
We don't tell the shower stories this time of night.
That's only scary if Walt and I
No, it's
do it.
perfectly innocent, and it's perfectly innocent. It's straight up no
plumbers.
wall. But I was bending.
Wait.
Trust me, please. I was bending over with the milk hose,
Oh, wait a minute.
putting it onto the milk tank, and there's a set where you have to do it lean forward. Okay, switching the computer on, getting everything to go, and all of a sudden,
Wait a minute. You made a gesture. This is not working well.
think alien. You know,
Something came out.
behind me, and made me jump out of my skin, and I headbutted the top of the milk, the parlor.
no.
It was a collie dog. It came from nowhere. I'd never seen it before. I never saw it again. It was sort of this time of year, in the fog, in the dark, in the gloom. Can you imagine what that felt? There wasn't someone I could talk to for about a mile. Those Cornish lanes are about as wide. They're about as, I don't know, they're half the width of the studio. So what do you do? So that was spooky.
Now he's a writer.
Sometimes
Now
real
he's a
life
writer.
is scarier than
That's
actually.
right.
You know.
And so
tell you,
somewhere
you know
a
what?
collie is sitting around going, you should have seen how high that guy jumped.
He was waiting for me. He was waiting for me. I never
He
saw
went
him.
home and goes, there was like the full moon out tonight, but then it like moved, and I never saw the moon move.
The full moon was out, but you couldn't see it because of the fog. So getting back to your point, it's not what you see, it's what you imagine.
It's what you imagine you see.
It's what you imagine you see.
Look, we just got done.
I was digressing a little bit.
We call it glamping, but we went camping. And you know, when you go camping, if you've ever done it, you know that if you're staying multiple days, you can't leave trash or a trash container on the ground because animals will come and dig through it. So we have a container that you can zip closed, and we hang it on a post so that way it's off the ground, so like things can't come rooting around.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't think about this, but you know, being a male, I don't have to worry about going all the way to the lavatories to use the bathroom if I wake up in the middle of the night. I could just kind of walk, 30 feet away from the tent and take care of mother's business, and I go back inside. So I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden a little gust of wind, and out of the corner of my eye, I see a big barrel-chested guy leaning over toward me, and I'm going, what the? It was the trash can hanging from the thing, but it just moved enough that in my head, the first thing I thought of was, who the heck just walked up on me? Totally defenseless now. It's not like I can do anything about it.
That's the fog again.
And it was just that barrel movement and I was like, that freaked me out. And I'm a grown adult.
The very bad beer you were drinking.
It was all the vodka I was drinking.
Now you're talking.
I had reconstituted it and was bringing it back to Mother Earth. So
too much information.
Scary.
We are
scary.
We're in the midst. By the 770-386-1450. If any of these things that we're talking about subject-wise makes you want to chime in, you can certainly add to the conversation. We were on our top 5 scary movies, the movies that's in our top 5 of all time. We went through our 4, so we're on our number 1, and then JW will let you be the 4th in this. So we'll go Walt, BK, me, and then you. So let's talk about our all-time, like that's the number 1 scary movie right now as of today in that list. Like, we realize this list can maneuver and change with the years. What's your number 1?
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Ooh. You know what? You know why that one's so good? Because the tension continues to build, and you never really see a lot of anything.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's almost, it's not the same, but it's similar to Jaws, that you don't know what's coming until it's too late. And but again, I think it kind of goes back to that thing of it's loosely based on a true story.
Right.
And,
it's on Netflix again this October. They've offered it to see on Netflix. Yeah, it's a very
now
great.
It's the Toby Hooper one, not the remake, right?
Oh yeah, that's no remakes.
Yeah,
it's Just want to be clear.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
No, but that was just such a disturbing movie. I think it's not as just frightening as it is.
No, it's one of those movies that I can't. I was trying to figure out why, because we rewatched it recently with some friends of ours. We were in where do they do Hell in Georgia for Oktoberfest, and I had to drive up after a football game. So this was 2 years ago now. So it was Friday night. I get up there about 1 o'clock in the morning, maybe about 12:30. So it's 12:30. Get up there. They've already had a few adult beverages. I got kind of caught up quickly, and they go, let's watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And so we were sitting there watching it. I felt my heart rate just increasing, even though I knew what was going on, because it just builds that kind of tension, because you realize it's all going to go south so fast. Right. And when it does, it's almost brutal, and yet anybody who says it's a gory movie has never actually seen it, because it's not.
And it's, believe it or not, it's actually a simplistic movie. I mean, there are things going on in it, but it's not shot with any kind of grandiose type of production. In fact, it was made on a shoestring budget by them in Texas. So,
in fact, half the shots I hated because he kept doing the same thing. I'm going to go across with grass in the foreground and something in the background. And he kept doing that over and over and over. I'm like, oh my God, okay, I get it. Depth of field. Let's go to the movie.
I liked that. He was a young filmmaker. And
he was young and making mistakes. But
the place in that where they get the barbecue at the beginning, where they stop at there's no gas there or whatever, and they're in the van, that has opened up now as a Texas Chainsaw Massacre museum and restaurant. The actual place, and it's in Texas, and it's open, and you can go to it.
Texas Chainsaw
and I wouldn't
Massacre and buffet. I like it.
I don't know if I'd want to order any barbecue there, but
no liver.
Kind of crazy.
Liver.
That's right.
All right, so that's your number 1. That's a great number 1.
It's really great.
All right, BK, your number 1.
Well, I went from Nosferatu, The Fog, Poltergeist down to Alien. Now I have to talk about, and we've already talked about it, The Shining.
Well, I mentioned it, but I knew you'd want to talk a little more about it.
The Shining. What can I say about The Shining that we haven't already said about it? I mean, to me, it's a Stephen King book, but The Shining really actually is more a Stanley Kubrick film than it is a Stephen King book, which is fine because I never read the book, and I did see the miniseries that they did with what's the guy's name from Wings that was in the miniseries that played Jack? Webb, Steven Weber, was that his name?
Weber,
yeah,
yep.
He played Jack Torrance in the miniseries, and Rebecca De Mornay played
I never saw that.
I saw the miniseries, and Stephen King approved of it, thought it was much more in tune to his book. But when I was watching it the whole time, it was unfair because I'm watching it going, I'm comparing this to the Stanley Kubrick movie through this whole thing. It's distracting. I'm distracted.
Just the atmosphere in that movie, though.
And I know it was more toward the book, but I think that's one of the scariest movies ever put on film. Is Stanley Kubrick's The Shining.
I do enjoy that. That's one that, what I said about it, and it's still true. It may not be necessarily like jump scare, out scare. It just hangs with you.
Stays with
and then the music. And I will tell you, when my daughter watched it, here's a funny story. So here's my oldest daughter. She's 23 now. We watched this past Christmas time. We got Ready Player One on Blu-ray. And if you've seen the movie, the Spielberg movie, where they're going through this guy's 80s memories and trying to unlock these keys, one of the whole subplots was set back in the hotel, the Overlook Hotel,
and they had to
of
go
The
in.
Shining. And they were playing the music, and my daughter goes, "I did not sign up for this. I did not sign up for this. What are we doing? What? This is supposed to be an action kind of crazy adventure movie. I'm not going back to The Shining." It really affected her. And still thinking about it.
Did you know? Over 90% of the music in The Shining is all borrowed classical music.
Yeah, until you get that cacophony of noise and stuff that
do. Is too.
That is too.
That's called the Awakening of Jacob. It's a 20th century composer. I can't remember his name, but it is 20th century very avant-garde classical music that was written.
Yeah,
that they borrowed.
Well, it's
from.
a creative use of noise.
And Stanley did that. He used a lot of Strauss and a lot of classical music for 2001. Space Odyssey. So he did that a lot of times. But and then we got the sequel, Dr. Sleep, coming out.
That's going to be fun next week, isn't it? November 8th?
It is next week. I think it's in November. Yeah, 8th.
And maybe it's the 8th coming up.
Yep.
So I will tell you that could very easily go to a number one any given year, just depending. Mine still, we talked about it last Saturday, but for folks who weren't listening, is The Exorcist. It is my number one all time. It just, because I think raised Roman Catholic, we were raised Catholic, right. So that it makes it even stronger. But to have the kind of visual effects, the practical effects, the camera work, the acting, it's just everything comes together.
Heck, I was raised Southern Baptist, and it scared me too.
So that is my all-time favorite. Not to say that any of these other ones don't creep me out, but if I have to say what's my top, it's The Exorcist.
Yeah, that's a good number one.
JW, you're joining us. So do you have a top favorite scary movie right now? It can change later, but for now.
Well, I go along with a lot that you've actually already said, because I would count most of mine along there. I would add a couple of others, but throwing a bit of a curveball here and coming from across the pond, I would say a 1960s movie would be right up there. The Wicker Man, not the dreadful Nicolas Cage remake, which was severely scary squirrels.
You had to get Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, that was scary for a whole different reason.
For an entirely different reason. But the original one, Edward Woodward, I believe.
Edward Woodward, Christopher Lee.
Ingrid Pitt, Christopher Lee, of course. Fundamentally Christopher Lee.
Yeah.
And can't remember the other lady. Anyway, that we were talking about what stays with you.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the whole thing about that, it led you on this merry dance, and you knew something was wrong, and it was creepy, and you knew these people they all had an agenda, but it was leading this British copper, innocently sort of trying to find out about this girl that had disappeared, and he believes she's been murdered. So he's following all these red herrings, if you like. And
he has to go all the way from London out to a remote.
It's from somewhere in Scotland. He's a Scottish
island.
copper.
Yeah, he's got to go.
It's like Edinburgh or Glasgow or somewhere.
Yeah.
And he goes across onto this island, and it's little subtle nuances, like they sort of watch him and they climb up behind the wall, and they're all wearing different animal masks. Which sounds kind of, a little bit sort of, been there, done that. But the way it's is done is it really works. But it builds, and the last scene in that book is just like, well, I won't say the word, but you watch it and your mouth just drops.
When you say it's like shocking at the end, as it was when Taylor saw the Statue of Liberty at the end of Planet of the Apes, it's that type of ending.
It is
Wicker
that
Man, you light
exactly
the fuse
right.
and it burned through the whole film. And all of a sudden, boom!
Exactly,
at the end.
because I think with that movie, you think part of you all thinks, well, it's going to work out. He's going to find the girl. Whatever happens, bad things will happen, but it's going to work out. And then you see the end, and you think, No.
Right. Yeah.
This is not going to work out.
If you've never seen The Wicker Man from, I think it's 73 when it came out. I think,
1973.
But if you've never
right.
seen The Wicker Man,
man,
please watch it. It's considered the Citizen Kane of horror films, and it's Christopher Lee's favorite movie that he ever did. He's always said that in interviews. He did.
He is amazing in it. I mean, it's
fantastic.
It's a superb movie. Very creepy.
And it's kind of it's got a little bit of everything. There's a little bit of a musical
it's
too.
It's a big folk scene movie. So the music in it is really good. If the folk, so yeah, it's very it's just that creepy side and a very British sort of feel to it because we do have one or two creepy things.
You have a handful. You have a handful.
That's a fantastic first choice.
We're not even going to bring up teeth. So,
well, can I give you the worst attempt at a horror type movie?
Yeah, I was gonna say I've got an honorable mention.
The Wicker Man with Nicolas Cage.
That was it. No, it's actually a different one, but it's Stephen King. Maximum Overdrive.
Oh my god,
that was a cocaine-fueled nightmare. And it really was. I mean, like, he missed days of filming because he was off on benders.
Described like that, but that's very accurate.
It is. Seen it. And then at the end, they just have a little thing that goes, and then a couple days later, it all ended. It's like, what is this all?
That was just a ridiculous movie.
Misfire.
Oh, absolute
Huge misfire. Yeah.
Did you see one by Stephen King, Cat's Eyes? Do you remember one called
I remember Cat's Eyes.
Yeah, I remember that. I don't know if I ever saw it.
Cat's Eye was more of it was vignette stories. It was in short stories.
Short stories.
With Drew
There's a
Barrymore.
little thing on the end of the bed that used to suck the breath from.
Yeah.
That
It had its creepy moments,
One of those things where the book works so much better than the movie did.
Yes.
It took until Stand By Me. I think The Shining was, I would argue, was a good Stephen King adaptation, but I think you're right. It wasn't.
He didn't think so. Yeah,
yeah. He didn't. But it was based. But I think in terms of taking a really, really good story and then finally finding a good director and telling a really good tale, Stand By Me was probably the first that started a series. We got Shawshank Redemption was fantastic.
Shawshank is still
that's a great movie.
That may be my favorite movie based off of a Stephen King piece of work.
One more spooky movie, just not spooky, but genuinely frightening. We mentioned it was Event Horizon.
Event Horizon.
Yes.
I just have to mention that because
as a sci-fi flick, and then thinking that you were somehow punching some kind of a weird alternate world where you're almost releasing demons, and it makes people go savagely insane. It's creepy. And I heard they're going to do another one.
Event Horizon 2? Will they all come back?
No, a different, same thing happens to a different crew. I don't know.
Yeah.
They do that all the time, right? It's Hollywood. We can't come up with anything new.
Deep space is just scary.
Yes, it is.
So I told you with this category, I had an honorable mention, but I also had a most embarrassing mention. So if you come up with an honorable mention, I'm saying this only because we agreed earlier it's not technically horror, but so many people consider it a scary movie.
I know where you're going.
Jaws will always be an honorable mention. If you say, well, I just need a movie with frights and scares, but I want a good movie and a good adventure, Jaws is the movie to watch.
Yeah.
I love Jaws.
It's one of the best ever. And I've said this before, like, I can turn it on 4 minutes in and I'm going to sit and watch the whole thing. Or I can turn it on with 4 minutes left, and I'm going to watch those last 4 minutes.
And we all own it. We could watch the Blu-ray or whatever, but if it's on television, okay, I just don't want to put the Blu-ray in.
I think the thing about Jaws, the genius of Jaws, it's three men on a boat, and it's a rubber fish, and yet the story is just... Well, it is a rubber fish, let's face it. But the story is just... that's the whole thing.
It's amazing.
The story is just incredible. The characters
when they're sitting
are incredible.
there, and he tells that story about being on the Indianapolis and going down...
Yeah.
That is indelibly imprinted on my mind.
I read a review that said the most harrowing moment of Jaws has nothing to do with the shark, but it has to do with sharks.
Yeah.
And it's about the telling of the Indianapolis.
I mean, that is just... And to sit and
Robert
think...
Shaw, what a fabulous actor.
Oh, yeah. And to think, that's a true story. That really happened.
Do you realize that had only just gotten declassified when Carl Gottlieb decided to include that in the story? In fact, a lot of people thought that was fictionalized.
Yeah,
like he made that story
floating around out there, but
it was officially released. And apparently, if you know the real story, it's even worse because the salt water that these people were literally their skin was literally peeling off of their bodies. They were like being blanched in the water.
Yep.
And some of them, even though it was like 80-degree water, when you're not eating anything, you're not generating heat. They were starting to go through hypothermia. A lot of them, the reason they got killed by sharks, they were starting to go mad and they thought they could swim away. Yep. And they would just start swimming away, and they would get picked off by the shark because they went mad because they're sitting in the baking sun, nothing to do but just sit in salt water. It's horrifying to just think about.
It is a horrifying story.
Yeah.
And one of the facts that the rubber shark that they built for the film didn't work made the movie better in a way because they couldn't show it until much later in the film. So,
I mean,
the whole less is more. Let the mind play the tricks on you. Hey, I thought a garbage can was out to get me while I was in the middle of the woods. So, hey.
But how'd you know
if it was
wasn't?
yellow, right?
Yeah.
Seriously.
You know what? For all I know, it was, and he ducked behind the garbage can, and I would never know.
You just really
Oh, wait,
never
I just
do
freaked
that.
myself out. What if there was someone there?
There you go.
It was a shadow.
Shadow
where you're
behind the
looking.
All
shadow.
right, let me see. Now, BK, well, you and I have said this. You came up with the idea, but I agreed with you. He is a walking IMDb.
Yes.
So I'm going to put one by him because this one I saw when I was a kid, a black and white movie on TV that made me cry. Now, granted, I was like 7.
The Andy Griffith Show.
But I'll never forget being laughed at by my family for lying at it, and I'll tell you why in a second. The movie was called From Hell It Came, 1957. Is that right? Ring any bells?
No,
From Hell It Came.
Not ringing with me.
Sounds
no.
like my cat.
Okay, so the premise, these
But I'll find out
explorers
here
in
in
a
just a second.
Pacific, these explorers land on some uncharted Pacific island with a bunch of natives. A guy is wrongfully assassinated or basically sacrificed by these natives. And he comes back as a possessed tree. They called it the Tubunga.
Oh, I have seen this.
really?
This is
And the
terrible.
Tubunga goes on a rampage and
Yes.
throws one girl into quicksand and she dies and
tree.
tries to kill somebody else.
I'm
They
liking
light him on fire
is.
and my mom goes, "Look, there's nothing to be scared of anymore. He's on fire." And then they went through a river and put himself out. I'm like, "He's still alive." And I ran back out of the room.
Yeah.
Got made so much fun of as a child. For
Yeah.
And
There's
you
nothing
now
to be
go
afraid.
camping in the woods?
Now I go camping in the woods. Yes.
Well, I'm telling you, from right now, the movie poster I'm looking at and the whole plot that I'm hearing, I want to watch it now.
Yeah. That
'Cause
was
I
one
love
of
stuff
those
like
that was
that.
like late night, Saturday night, TBS, right before they signed off kind of movie.
But I will tell you that one of the actresses in it is my mom's name. There is a Linda Watkins in this movie.
Really?
And that's my mom's full name.
Well, for any of you
Yes,
who've ever seen
that's
From
funny.
Hell It Came, it was on some.
Have not seen that
It was
one.
on one of those channels like we all grew up with, like the 7 or maybe 6 or 7 channels. It was the UHF movie channel.
Right.
That some days would play Kung Fu Theater. This was sort of like that, time of year where they would do like the throwback terror movies. This is the same channel that I would see the Creature from the Black Lagoon
Right.
reruns and stuff. Watching that,
See, I always thought that movie
just
was
terrified.
named Tubunga.
I thought it was called Tubunga too.
And it was because it was one of those that I would never catch the beginning. I would always catch it about 5 minutes in, right about the same spot. And so I never saw the title.
Well,
There you are. Well, then you've seen it. Now, now you probably weren't scared of it, let alone crying.
no, I was like, what am I watching?
author and film critic Leonard Maltin awarded the film 1.5 out of 4 stars, writing this,
That's a
quote,
winner.
"As walking tree movies go, this is at the top of the list," unquote. So he found something good about it, giving it just 1 star.
As
which is
walking
great.
tree
All right,
movies
we've
go.
got
I wanna see
less
it.
than a minute till 11 o'clock. We're going to be here for another hour, but JW's time is almost up. Very quickly, folks want to learn a little bit more about you and your fantasy series or just about any of the books you've put out. How do they get in touch with you?
Just my website, which is jwwebauthor.com. To say it's mostly fantasy. I've just published number 9. It's all set in a sort of pseudo-medieval Celtic Norse myth setting. And then there's a Haven, the ghost story.
The Ghost Story of the Haven. And that right now is free until what?
That's
midnight?
free until Saturday.
You're going to go all the week till the
yes.
weekend.
And you got a ton of stuff on Amazon.
Yes, it's mainly all on Amazon. Yeah.
Do a search
So-
for JW Webb. By the way, he's
I've also
very
got,
active
I'm
on
out
Facebook.
on audiobook now as well, so I've got 3
That's
free
right. You
audiobooks
got a
now
guy
as
that
well,
did the
so-
voiceover for it.
Yes.
Excellent.
Very active on Facebook. Nothing sensible happening
JW,
there.
thanks so much for coming in. Happy Halloween.
Well, that's lovely. Thank you for inviting me. Happy Halloween, guys.
And welcome back, everybody. Hour number 3 of our Halloween Spooktacular. It's a little bit like a BK on the air Saturday, only it's happening on Halloween. We're going to blame it on BK.
I'm used to things being blamed on me. That's good. That's a good thing I'll take the blame for, though. I like that.
That is a good thing.
We're having a good time. You got to be having a good time. I'm up at 11 o'clock, and I don't even feel like it
And
right
you
now.
got to get up in the morning.
I will.
Yeah.
I'll be here for tomorrow.
You just stay here.
Talk about something scary.
It's got a long day again tomorrow because I'm going to have Bartow Sports Zone, and then we got high school football tomorrow night.
Oh, that's right.
Wow, the more scary stuff. That's horrifying.
That is.
Whereas BK's like screaming all last Saturday.
Running, scream like a girl. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No. I like making my wife scream like a girl. 770-386-1450 is the phone number.
Girls just scream better than guys. They really do. Although I did hear this guy on the Jurassic Park ride at Universal scream totally like a woman. I thought, who's the woman screaming on this? Oh, it's a guy. Because it was scaring him so bad on that ride. He was screaming like crazy.
All right. We've had some lists. We've had some things. I know we're going to get some. I want to try to cram as much as we can in this last hour. Well, this stuff that gives us things to talk about. You know, we can take it wherever, any direction. This is a category that I still have a hard time reconciling, and every now and then someone does a really good job with it. And it's the mashup of a scary movie that's a comedy. You know, sometimes it's more comedy, maybe sometimes it's more horrifying with comedic elements, but I thought, you know, it'd be a fun list. Rather than just a scary movie, can we pick our favorite movie that kind of tries to blend the genres of humor and horror?
This was my favorite list to put together.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I started the first one. You started the second one. So, BK, your top five. What's number five?
Number 5.
You didn't even write it down, did you?
I have to. No, I don't have to.
See, he didn't do his homework either.
It's up here. What do you mean homework?
You did it.
I have it up here.
Okay.
It's up here.
So these are
what was it?
It can go anything from more comedy, but it's definitely considered like in the case scary, October, ghost, ghouls, goblins, to more horrifying, whatever. But which ones would be a horror comedy that you like, number 5?
I would have to say that number 5 was the first Sam Raimi Evil Dead film.
Oh, the very
first one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Now, I say that for a reason, and I'll tell you later, but the first Evil Dead is number 5.
Okay.
Yes. I don't care what anyone says.
Are we getting to Army of Darkness later?
It is funny. Yeah. Yes. So you can somehow you can tell the future.
Well, I've worked with you long enough now.
But good. These movies are funny. The Evil Dead, the first one is funny, and it's horrific in some parts because you got people coming back from the dead in a little remote cabin in the middle of the woods. But there's a lot of funny elements to it, so I'll have to vote for the Evil Dead. Evil Dead is the first one.
Okay,
it's number 5
for me. And I didn't like it the first time because I was like, why are you making fun and why are you doing this in the middle of a movie that has so many moments that are just like, oh, especially a transformation that was a cutting edge for its time. An American Werewolf in London.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't like it the first time I saw it. I was like, this is stupid. You've got this great story of a wolf, a man turning into a werewolf, and then they're making fun. And then they're like, he's naked looking for balloons, and the kid goes, Mammy, and like, what's going on? It wasn't until later I appreciated this mashup of horror and comedy. So that's my number 5.
That's a good choice for number 5.
Yeah, and my number 5, Mars Attacks.
Mars Attacks.
That one... It really probably should be a little further up on the list, but I've got some other good ones.
That is a great movie.
But I love that movie, and it just, like, it almost transports me back to being 14, and I laugh out loud at so many things in that movie.
That is a great movie. So many people hate it. It is a wonderful mashup of a B horror science fiction movie,
no question.
And those little aliens, those little mother. Did you?
And what blows their brains up at the end and kills them all?
Oh yeah, the yodeler.
So great. Yeah, I mean, I love that movie. It's just a fun movie to watch.
Remember? Because the reason we found out what killed him is those little stinkers had they just killed the grandmother while she had her headphones on, but they thought it'd be funny to bring the big giant cannon into her room and put it up the back of her head, and they're all snickering like and then all of a sudden they pulls the headphones off and it's who was the yodeler? It was
it's not unusual to be.
No, it wasn't that guy. He was in it.
Oh, yeah. That's right. It was
Tom Jones was in it. Yeah,
Tom Jones was in it. Escaping from Vegas. The yodeling cowboy. Oh my gosh! It's on the tip of my tongue.
Is it Slim Whitman?
Slim Whitman. There you go. Slim Whitman.
And that will break your brain.
When I'm calling you. My favorite part of that and that whole attacking. Remember how they built the universal translator?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
One of those little guys is running around with it, and you still hear him going, meh, 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 and you hear like they're shooting everybody. Everyone's dying and screaming. It's like, stop! We mean you no harm.
That's right. As they murder everybody.
That is a great movie. Well done, sir.
Thank you.
All right, that's our first round. Look at that. Now we've got number 4, BK.
Number 4, my number 4 funny horror film got turned into a musical remake later on when it came out in the
Little Shop of
late
Horrors.
80s, is Little Shop of Horrors. But the Roger Corman, the original one with Jack Nicholson, it's a funny horror movie. It falls within that range. I didn't care for the remake that much, even though I know Frank Oz directed it and they put a lot into it. But if you've never seen the original Little Shop of Horrors, you have to really watch it because, again, it was made on a shoestring budget, kind of like with Night of the Living Dead and some of those other early films. But they were, struggling filmmaker, and it pulls off being a horror/comedy just as much as anything else does.
I would agree.
That's my number 4.
I'm a mean green mother from outer space, and I'm
not in the original one.
No, but I
but in that later one that was, yeah.
I did like the remake, the color one. They had a little more money to put behind it. I thought it was.
It's since become very cult classic.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of musicals, but there's a handful I like, and that would qualify as one.
And it's turned into a play that you can put on as a Broadway play. You can get the script and put it on and produce it.
And the first time I watched it, I
day.
did not like it. But
Good pick. Mine, because of the genre itself, and actually because of the genre, I've got 2 of them on here, but I think the one who did it first, a blending of the zombie genre and comedy, Return of the Living Dead.
Return of the Living Dead is great. It's really great.
More brains.
And it fits in with the other sequels of the others. It's supposed to fit right in there, I thought.
It's sort of a parody movie of the Living Dead movies, and I like the fact that it's sort of poking fun at the genre, and yet...
Who directed that? Was it Dan O'Bannon, one of the Alien guys? Did he direct it? I guess I could look it up and see. Return of the Living Dead.
Dan O'Bannon wrote one of the script treatments for Alien, but he didn't direct.
Find that.
Obviously, we know that. But
did he direct this movie?
I don't know. I just know that Return of the Living Dead, that was the first time I think I started to appreciate that sort of mix of horror and comedy and realizing how it could be really funny at the same time. So
yeah.
I'm going to find out right now who directed that sucker.
Walt, while he's looking that up, what's your number 4?
Zombieland.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, I love that. Just a fun movie, very creative, and so that's... again, that's another one that as I was putting these on paper, I'm like, does that belong higher? These are all pretty close. So.
I like that. I think I have become a big fan of Woody Harrelson because I have liked every movie he's in, and if I don't like the movie, I've liked every role he's played in the movie he's in.
And it solidified with me on the new Netflix show, came out earlier this year, where they're hunting Bonnie and Clyde, The Highwaymen.
The Highwaymen. That was
which is a great movie. She is so good in that.
That's another movie that could have easily been shown in the theater.
No
question. It would have been really good. The production value was fantastic.
And Kevin Costner was fantastic.
It was a really, really good flick.
Well
I even learned a little something about that whole chase that I thought I knew a lot about Bonnie and Clyde, and I had no idea they had out or banned the Texas Rangers, that the governor was like, we're not going to have them kind around. And then people taking the law in their hands. No. And all of a sudden they go, yeah, we better get these guys because these Bonnie and Clyde, we need those kinds of people to track them down.
And this was the complete flip side of the film Bonnie and Clyde with Warren Beatty, because you didn't see Bonnie and Clyde in this film. It was totally from the perspective of the lawmen,
which I really liked,
which was fantastic.
And I also like the fact that they didn't glorify them like a lot of people thought that they were glorified.
Right.
And early movies do tend to make them more folk heroes.
And it was surprising how many local people were behind them like that. They just didn't have any idea what they'd done.
Just so poor and thinking that they were fighting for them. And so it's just amazing when you don't know the whole story, how you can be so easily fooled.
No internet back then. They just didn't know. That's right.
All right. Number 3, BK.
What was your number 3?
It's number 4.
No, my number 4 was
your number
Zombieland.
4. So now we're going down to number 3. My number 3 is Zombieland.
Okay.
And guess what? The sequel is out as of right now.
That's right.
Double Tap's in the theater. Haven't seen it yet. We plan on seeing it. Zombieland hits on so many cylinders of horror and comedy. And people go, well, it's not really that scary. Yeah, there's some horrific moments in it. The very first scene in the apartment when the girl comes in and he wants to help her, and then she starts chasing after him. That's pretty horrific. When he goes stops to the restroom and uses the restroom, and he shows his rules that you have to do, rule number 6 or whatever. It's got some horrific moments of zombies attacking people and our heroes, and they have to dispatch them. But how they dispatch them sometimes is pretty darn funny, though.
Well, and it's got, of course, the great Bill Murray in it too.
They wind up at Bill Murray's house.
I was also left like jaw-droppingly shocked when he was like, "Let me watch this. I'm going to fool this," and then they ends up getting. I'm like, I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't want to give anything away from him who's never seen it.
No, one of the things that with Young Frankenstein.
Funny.
Yeah. Well, in Young Frankenstein, in our breakdown of that, we talked a lot about they don't go too long without reminding you it's a monster movie or a horror movie. And Zombieland kind of does the same thing.
Yes, they do.
No, it's a really good flick about I love it. All right, so your number 3 is Zombieland. His
Well
was
deserved.
Number 4 was Zombieland.
Great.
My number 3, which I'm so glad it popped in my head because I was doing all these kind of like, the Zombielands, the zombie movies, the Evil Deads, and I thought, Brendan Fraser's The Mummy.
Oh,
I love that movie. That is such a fun adventure. It's got funny lines, but ultimately it's still a mummy movie. It is a traditional monster movie. And there are some scary moments when he's draining the life out of people, leaving carcasses in his way as he's slowly regenerating. And yet it's a fun movie. I could watch The Mummy any day of the week.
Good pick.
It's a good pick. I don't know if I'd necessarily say it's a funny horror film, though. I'd have to throw just a small flag out on the field there. But
wait a minute, you're going to use a sports analogy on me?
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I'm going to throw a flag on your flag.
I was trying to get you to understand what I was talking about.
He was having a hard time getting through it.
He's trying to figure out, is it flag on the field?
Because I consider The Mummy to be more of an Indiana Jones type movie. It could have easily been Indiana Jones and the Tomb of the Mummy, and to me, it was still better than the last Indiana Jones movie. More of an Indiana Jones movie than the last one was. But yeah, it's a great movie. To me, I love it. I don't like remakes better than the originals very often, but the Mummy movie with Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz is much better than the original one Boris Karloff. It is much better.
Fan of that movie anytime. All right, Walt.
Number 3 is Shaun of the Dead.
Yes. Great movie.
I love Shaun of the Dead.
Great movie. It works on so many levels as an allegory of how we're just all walking around with our carts and looking at our phones, and we're just walking zombies anyway. Would we even know on our drunken stupor to the grocery store that the apocalypse happened overnight? Would we know?
Yeah, and I think with legitimately one of the funniest, one of the better comedy actors of our time leading that movie, and who really, I mean, he plays Mr. Scott in the Star Trek movie, so he's
Simon Pegg.
Simon Pegg is a very
funny.
versatile actor.
Yeah,
and
Simon Pegg, Nick Frost, that whole trilogy. I like the trilogy of those movies of the two of them in their sort of like apocalyptic worldview from different perspectives.
Yeah.
And what's great about Shaun of the Dead is it is really funny, but when they get to the pub, though,
the final stand,
it gets very.
It gets heavy,
horribly dramatic,
it does.
and you almost cry at one point. It's like, oh no!
It's like, how can you do that? And then in the space of the next minute and a half, you're like laughing again. Like that's brilliant.
But they go into it fine. It's not a jarring change. You go back into laughing, and it's just a smooth change.
It fits. It fits with the movie. And I think credit Simon Pegg in a lot of ways for that. I really think that he is kind of an unsung hero of comedy right now.
He's good writer. He's a good creative guy.
Yeah, wonderful. Awesome. So that was your number 3. So now we're to BK, number 2.
Figure out which records in your vinyl to throw at zombies.
Wait, that was
I was like, no, don't throw that.
It was crap.
Leave all of my ELO albums alone. Throw the other stuff out. That's fine. I've got to keep those at least. Number 2 for me, I will have to go with The Evil Dead Part 2. Because I said Evil Dead was number 5.
Just Evil Dead 1 with a bigger budget?
Yes. And it was funnier and much better more well done than the other one was. It is basically not a sequel. It's actually a big budget remake of Evil Dead is all it is. So if you watch Evil Dead 2 Dead by Dawn, I think I went back in the theater probably 3 times to see it because we were all just where everybody's like, why are you laughing? I'm like, because it's funny. You don't see that it's funny. A lot of people didn't see that. But Evil Dead 2 is one of the funniest horror films I think ever made, next to the number 1 that's coming up. So that's what I'll say. And it's Sam Raimi, by the way. And he's a great director, great filmmaker. He's had some misfires just like every other director. But he just produced a movie that came out that was in the theater for a little while called Crawl. It was about alligators coming in during a hurricane or crocodiles coming into a hurricane somewhere. And I haven't seen it yet, but I would like to.
I don't think anybody saw that.
I don't think it did that well, but he didn't.
Positive buzz.
He didn't direct it. He produced it, so I wouldn't mind seeing it because I wanted to see it. It looked like something I might want to watch, and it wasn't along the lines of Sharknado. That's another cheapo, crappy bit of filmmaking. This is a little more serious than that.
All right. Well, my number 2, we already spent time talking about it, but it was my number 2 is Shaun of the Dead. The wife and I could watch that almost any time as well. Any of the Simon Pegg, like I said, that trilogy when he plays the bad cop. Was it not the cop movie? Oh my gosh, what's it called? The cop
Super
movie.
Fuzz.
Super Fuzz.
Yeah.
Yes, that is a brilliant, fantastic story, and that's just those guys are just great.
Yeah.
But Shaun of the Dead, I can't explain how witty I was just admiring that movie the first time watching it. Like, there's no way they can sustain it through the whole movie. There's no way. I kept saying to myself, you're not going to be able to be this good through the whole movie, and it was.
I kind of did the same thing with that movie Paul that they did.
Oh, that was really good.
Yeah, and same thing. I mean,
The little alien hitchhiker.
10 minutes into it, I'm like, there's no way this is going to be this funny.
Hey guys, want to get me out of Area 51?
I never knew Timothy Dalton could be as funny as he could be as in Super Fuzz as the grocery store guy.
Yeah.
I'm like, Timothy Dalton, this is
Grocery store magnet.
fantastic. He's funny. He's really funny. It's James Bond, but he's only.
All right.
Number two.
You're number 2.
Ghostbusters.
Ooh, good one.
I'm surprised that hadn't shown up already, but yeah. I mean, you talk about just one laugh after another couched in kind of a, sort of a horror movie. But, of course, it's a classic and everybody loves it, and rightly so.
And see, I like the way he did that. He went sort of a horror movie because remember our list we had last weekend on BK on the Air. I was counting down the top money-making horror films of all time, and they included Ghostbusters on that list. I'm like, Ghostbusters. I don't know if I could call it a horror movie. It's not.
Yeah.
It's got horror elements in it, I guess, because of the ghosts and the hauntings and the one that scares them and stuff. But I don't know if it belonged on that horror list, but they put it on there. So
not as a pure horror. If
No,
you're gonna
not
make it a
pure
horror
horror,
movie.
no.
I'm like, not so much.
No.
All right, so we're at our number 1 comedy, scary, the mashup. It could be leaning more toward comedy, like
Okay.
Ghostbusters, or more toward horror, like Evil Dead. But where is yours?
Can I just say that before we do it? Can we just all say it at the same time
Yes.
if I count it down and say the title and
I
see
don't
if
know,
we do
'cause
it?
My
Yes.
number
I
1's
know
not
two of
your
us
number
can.
1.
Oh, how do you know?
I'm pretty sure.
You
pretty
can't
much
read my
guess what
mind.
it is.
I'm pretty sure.
I was close with a couple.
Okay.
Well, why don't I guess yours and you guess mine?
Okay.
In 3, 2, 1.
Young Frankenstein.
That
And you
didn't
know
even
what?
make my list.
If it's not on your list, you got to turn your microphone off and leave the studio.
No.
Why is that not on your list,
I
mister?
will tell you. Well, first of all, I don't think it's a scary movie. I don't think any of it is a scary movie. Just
Well,
because
it's not
it's a
a scary
throwback.
movie.
Frankenstein. It's a horror.
throwback
It's
to
a
a
throwback
monster
from a
movie. I
Frankenstein
get it.
movie.
I've got to me. Which
See, somebody's
to
calling
me-
now to disagree with him right now on the phone. I bet they are.
That's right.
I bet that's what
All right,
they're doing.
We'll take a scary phone call because I have a feeling it's going to be. Let's go to the phones and say, "Hey, good evening. Who's this?"
This is Carl Roach. How y'all?
Hey, Carl. What's going on? Do you want to weigh in on these funny, scary movies? Do you got one that you like?
I like Beetlejuice.
Beetlejuice. That's a great one.
Oh, yeah.
Another Tim Burton movie.
Yeah, I like all the movies y'all been singing.
So, have you been enjoying our Spooktacular, talking about all these movies and candies and having our guests and just having a fun time laughing?
Yeah, I enjoy y'all.
Awesome. Carl, thanks so much for being out there listening. I know you're one of our loyal WBHF listeners, and we appreciate you being there.
Okay, thank you.
Take care. We're almost done. Try to hang out. We got 35 more minutes. Keep listening.
Okay.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Well, maybe
It's not
let's
totally
hang
on
that
the
up.
rack.
we can hang. All right. So my number 1, which that was actually Beetlejuice. I hadn't even thought of that.
Beetlejuice is
That's-
awesome.
that's
That is
really
such a
good.
great movie.
See, next year it's going to be a top 10. So my
no, next
number
year he's
1
going to put Young Frankenstein on there.
That's
next year.
right.
You know why? Because of all these movies that I put on here, I didn't even think about Young Frankenstein because it's similar to Jaws. It didn't make it on the list.
Did a whole podcast on it.
I know. But you know what I also did a podcast on? And it was his number 2, but it is my number 1, Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
That movie is from top to bottom, left to right, inside out. There is no bad scene. There is no bad moment. There are quotable lines left and right. It is funny, but it's got some scary moments. It's got when Sigourney Weaver is sitting in the chair and the arms come out of the armrest and start to hold her in place and drag her into the room. There's your scary. When you've got
the refrigerator and
Zool's in there. The first ghost, the apparition in the library that turns into the horrific skeleton and scares them. It works that fine line. It always reminds you it's a ghost catching movie. There's ghosts, there's scariness, there's an evil plot to bring Gozer the Gozerian into our world and destroy us all. Unfortunately, it was all because of Ray. We had the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man
right.
instead of S'lores and Torbs.
Well, and it's funny to look at these lists. There are 2 out of the 5 of mine have Bill Murray in them. And I didn't really think about that. And he was in a couple of years, I think.
Well, Zombieland.
Yeah,
Zombieland,
and
I think he was in Young Frankenstein, but you didn't see him.
Right.
I think he was in
background
there somewhere.
Yeah.
All right, Walt, you're number one.
Oh, my number one is Young Frankenstein.
That's right. You guys said it already. Duh, that's right.
Yeah. And if you'd like, I would be more than happy to explain why.
Okay, let me tell you that. I could say everything about Young Frankenstein that he said about Ghostbusters, just take out the Sigourney Weaver thing because she's not in it.
Right.
I can say everything about Young Frankenstein, including the first scene when all of a sudden the casket opened up and the dead body was there. That kind of scared me when I first saw it. That's a good
startling.
scare. There's a few shots of Peter Boyle here and there and all this stuff.
Well, how about when they're walking down and you have the skulls?
When you see the skulls, that was scary when I saw that. When I was younger, when I saw it.
It was scary when I realized they were real
scary.
cadaver donor skulls.
Yeah.
And
Bob's Deadhead.
And in Poltergeist, too. We talked about that in Poltergeist where she's in the pool. Real
Don't tell
skeletons.
her until we're finished filming.
Yeah, please. Right. And then she'll kill us when it's over. Those are real skulls in Poltergeist.
A little OSHA violation.
Well, it was just cheaper to buy dead bodies from Mexico than it was to actually manufacture them.
The special effects guy. ILM's expensive.
They look more real.
Yeah.
I was waiting for somebody to go, those skeletons look so fake. They were real, right?
Yeah. They're...
How do you justify that? That's right.
I can't even imagine being in muddy water with corpses.
I don't know why you'd want to.
Even if you see the behind the scenes of them shooting that scene, she really is in muddy water with corpses. Yeah. So it's part Hollywood, but it's part real, and it's. But Joe Beth is a good actress.
Never told her until after. She did not know.
But she sure acts like it when she's in the water in the scene. She sure acts like
it's
terrifying.
horrific.
Yeah, she's terrified in that scene. Looks like it. Good actress.
Such a well-done movie. From top to bottom. That is, God, it's so good.
Well, still, when you watch it with headphones on and you hear the footsteps.
Remember when you and I were talking about it, when we broke it down, because you weren't as big a fan of Poltergeist when we decided we were going to do it.
And I mean, I've always liked it.
Yeah.
But it was never that high
sound
on my
design
list,
is off the chain.
And something hit me the other day that I totally forgot about. I saw, and you guys do a podcast called The Wilder Ride, Films of Gene Wilder. Pretty soon, I'm sure you guys might get to Stir Crazy, the movie Stir Crazy, which was hilarious when they were in prison.
Great
I'd forgotten that Jo Beth Williams is in Stir Crazy. And Craig T. Nelson is in it because he's one of the guards. And I'm like, wait a minute, we got a Poltergeist connection here. Yeah.
She's the attorney trying to get him out.
That's right. Yep. So, yeah. So
all right.
I don't know why I thought of that. But
we've made it through yet another list. We've got a few more things I want to hit because we only have half an hour.
I do too. I got some stuff to hit. We got to get to our favorite Dracula. Who played Dracula the best out of everybody that you've ever seen?
We'll do that next. How about that? Because I want to make sure we get to that. And then if we want to throw in there who was just horrific as Dracula. But first, we're going to take a short time out here, our last one of the night, and then we will be back with the wrap-up of our 5th annual Halloween Spooktacular. Welcome back, everybody. Can you believe it? We're on our last segment here of our Halloween Spooktacular. Sort of like a mini version of what you get on Saturday with BK on the air. Yeah, BK, I'm here with you. We've got Walt in the Darkness. All three of us have been here before on a Saturday.
I certainly can't believe it. That's for sure.
Ooh, yeah.
It's unbelievable.
My favorite Dracula is the Count. He loves to count things.
Ooh, mine's Count Chocula.
Is it Count Chocula? I like
well,
Count
that's
Chocula.
ridiculous. You guys did the list totally wrong then. That's just forget it.
See, now I drive my wife nuts because I'm like, one, two beers, two empty beers.
Well, mine's Count Chef Boyardee. I'm just going to combine a bunch of stuff.
Chef Boyardee.
That's right.
1, 2, 3 left beers.
He's such a bloodsucker.
All right, you actually wanted to do this. You said, because you're a big fan of Dracula.
Well, I did.
Not just vampires, but specifically Dracula.
I thought since we've been doing this every year, we'll change it up a little bit. We're doing Dracula this year. Maybe next year we'll say, hey, who was your favorite werewolf? Who was your favorite Frankenstein's monster. Who is your favorite, whatever mummy or whatever? We'll do all the do all the classic monsters, every year.
Who's your favorite creature from the Black Lagoon?
That's right. Who's your favorite?
Who's your favorite King Kong?
I think there were 2 guys that played him. I really do think there were. So,
of all the Jasons, which Jason are you?
That's right. There's more than one Jason. That's right. Jason who?
Can you tell it's 11:30?
I'd like to be Freddy Krueger, but not that one because he sucked.
That one.
All right,
speaking of that, Evil Dead 2 was my number 1 film, number 2 film on the funny horror films. Did you know when Ash is in the basement of this cabin when he's running away from these ghosts and these creatures? In the background, he passes by a lot of things, and he passes by Freddy Krueger's razor claws hanging in the basement. They make a cameo appearance in there. Yeah, they did. It's funny you should bring that up. Yeah.
All right, so let's go. You have a category. You like Dracula. So you asked us. You said let's think about who played Dracula the best.
So many actors have played actual
they have.
Dracula, not just vampires, but the character Dracula.
The character of Count Dracula.
That's right.
Count Dracula from Transylvania.
That's right.
I'm so happy you're here to my castle.
He sounds like the guy in Ant-Man, though. That's the thing.
In Ant-Man?
Yeah, that talks like that in Ant-Man. From Russia.
Oh, from Russia?
Sounds like him.
Well, that's a different accent altogether.
Yes.
Hey, just the trilling of the R's get you all excited. I get it.
Favorite Draculas, and we got the worst. I think we have worst Draculas, too, right?
I do. Yeah. Do I have a worst? I do have a favorite. I don't know if I have a worst.
I've got both.
You've got
both. Okay, good.
All right. Well, Bea, this is your category. Why don't you lead us?
Oh my goodness!
prayer.
My favorite. That's something bad to say when you're talking about Dracula. My favorite Dracula, and for me, it's almost a tie between 2 actors. I first kind of got introduced to Dracula when I would get up late at night on Friday nights and Saturday nights and watch Monster Chiller Shock Theater that almost every local channel had when you were growing up. This was Channel 9 out of Chattanooga, I think, had it here locally when I was growing up. Shock Theater. And I got to see an actor. It was a movie called Dracula Has Risen from the Grave, from the Hammer films that I was just talking to JW about in the studio here earlier when we had him, the English movie studio, Hammer Films. And it was Christopher Lee played Dracula in that film. But it was the, I think, 3rd or 4th, I think it was the 3rd Dracula film. So even back then, they had their own cinematic universe and made several films with Dracula with him in it and sequels. And it was the 3rd one. Now, when I got older and we got to had our own, home video and stuff, and we could see movies that we'd missed as kids, I went and discovered the Dracula films he did before that. And the first one he did was called The Horror of Dracula, 1957, 58, I think. But it was called Dracula in the UK, but here they changed it to The Horror of Dracula. Christopher Lee, to me, plays probably the best Dracula I've ever watched. He's ruthless.
Okay.
He's entertaining. He's a great actor. There's more in when he says less, and when he says, because as his Dracula films, he has very little dialogue as Dracula. It's mostly facial features, close-ups of his eyes, growling, hissing, but he does talk sometime. But he is my favorite Dracula.
Red eyes.
He wore red contacts that were very, I think, uncomfortable.
And I have no problem with Christopher Lee. I actually was thinking you were going to go with Frank Langella.
That was the other one that I'm going to bring up. I said I had 2. Christopher Lee and Frank Langella are my 2 favorite Dracula actors. Frank Langella for completely different reasons, because he played him completely different from the way Christopher Lee did. But he was still very ruthless, very evil. But we got to see the romantic side a little more than Christopher Lee as well. So the 79 film Dracula with Frank Langella, directed by John Badham, who we interviewed on BK on the Air. John Badham called in. We talked to him about a lot of things. He directed Saturday Night Fever, Dracula, Short Circuit, the movie about the robot. Yeah. He's directed a lot of films.
I almost think
Dracula
the reason
that
character stands out is because of just the filmmaking techniques of the time too.
Sure, yeah, I'll agree with that. Yeah,
I mean, there's just some of the things I just thought it was cool.
It was hard. It's hard to do something original with Dracula. That's why they were running out of gas at Hammer, because every new Dracula film they had to find another way. Oh, we've got to bring him back. He was killed in the last one. We have to find a way to bring him back again, because he's playing the same guy. It's not a different vampire Dracula. He's the same one. That they're finding creative ways to bring him back. So Christopher Lee, and he went on to break out of his typecasting and being in a lot of things. Lord of the Rings, Star Wars.
Oh, he's fantastic.
He was in The Wicker Man that JW was talking about. A fantastic role in The Wicker Man. But him and Peter Cushing were the dynamic duo of horror. If he he played Frankenstein in the first Hammer Frankenstein film, and Peter Cushing played Dr. Frankenstein. Peter Cushing was usually chasing him and killing him as Dr. Van Helsing when he was Dracula. So they were always together. So for me, and George Lucas obviously loved the two guys too because he put them both in his Star Wars films. So they were fantastic. Those two guys are my favorite Draculas. All right, Walt, you have a favorite?
Yeah, and it's a kind of a weird one, but it is Bela Lugosi.
Really?
That's not weird at all. He's a lot of people emailed me and said that he was their favorite.
He's the original, but I will tell you, you go back and watch it. Maybe it's just because of filming techniques of the time versus today. It's so hard to take it seriously.
Well, here's why he's my favorite. When I was in about 8th or 9th grade, I got sick and couldn't sleep one night, and so I went and did what we all did and turned the TV on, and I was like, "Oh, old vampire movie or old Dracula movie." This
1931,
something on. He freaked me out, and I don't
freaked a
know
lot
if
of
it was
people out.
because I was sick. I don't know if it was, but like he became Dracula for me, and it's like all other Draculas are now,
Oh, he did set the bar.
judged
Dracula by a lot of people.
The horror of fear that I had, where I couldn't sleep for 2 days after watching it, and so I think that's why. I mean, I think there are probably people who have played it better, but I don't think I've been impacted by any other actor who played Dracula as much as I was.
I'll echo a little bit about what Alan said. What I will say about that is I think Bela Lugosi is the best thing about the movie. He's a better actor than the movie is a movie. The movie is not that
100%.
great, but he's great in the role as Dracula. He's Hungarian.
Mm-hmm.
His accent was not fake. He was the genuine article when it comes to that.
No special effects.
No effects.
No CGI.
Oh, you didn't like the way he turned into a bat?
That was convincing.
The problem with that movie, with that film, Dracula, is it just ends.
Just ends.
It's over, and I'm like,
That's right.
that's the end. It's over. Wow, that's crazy. But
It didn't end for me though, because the whole rest of the night I was like,
you were thinking about it. Right?
Is that a vampire?
Didn't end for me.
You were thinking
went
about
on
it,
for
huh?
like 3
He
days.
jumped out of that screen.
Walt's
and was
looking
hiding
behind
in
the
my closet.
couch. Walt's looking behind the curtain. He's like, I'm going to bed.
He's got a
Or did you go to bed that night?
fever. No, I did not. I stayed up all night.
Yeah. But believe it or not, the votes I got on social media about Dracula, because I put this question out and said we were going to talk about it tonight, the most votes that I saw the most of were for Bela Lugosi from a lot of people.
Yeah.
So for a lot of people, he is their Dracula.
Yeah.
All right. You know my favorite?
I'm interested to know who your favorite
It's
Dracula
a
is.
crappy movie. It is a really bad movie. I didn't like it at all.
I think I
spent a lot of money, had a lot of cinematography, but in terms of the actor himself, Gary Oldman.
Yes, he's a great actor.
You want to talk about putting your own take on it? I mean, even when you've made a mark when the Simpsons realized we're going to have to parody his version of Dracula in our Treehouse of Horror.
There was a scene though in the film, and I hated the movie too. By the way, as a Dracula film, I just thought, what is Coppola done here? But when he's talking to Harker, which is Keanu Reeves, when he first visits him, and the way he's talking to him, and he cuts himself, and he licks it off the whatever because he loves blood. It almost made me laugh. Some of it was kind of funny in the way he's doing it. I don't know whether they did it on purpose or not, but I'm like, that's kind of makes me chuckle there the way he did that. That's kind of crazy over the top.
Awkwardness of being in a Coppola movie. Coppola trying things that just didn't work.
And he probably directed him to do that. That's what I would guess.
But Gary Oldman is just such an amazing actor that just gets lost in the roles he plays. And I think in terms of just playing Dracula, I like it. I hate the movie.
I can, and I agree with that.
And I do have a bad one. We'll start and go reverse. You know who my worst? Leslie Nielsen.
Well, that's a comedy though. See, I would, yeah.
As painful as it is to say,
still bad
because I love
Dracula
Leslie Nielsen.
Loving it bad.
That was a horrible.
That's a bad Mel Brooks movie too. Yeah,
it's bad all the way around.
Acting was terrible.
Yeah.
And
that's the one they were parodying.
Yeah,
was kind of that. They made fun of that Dracula too, in a way too.
I wish that movie did not exist.
All right, what was your worst?
That was it.
That was it too?
Yeah.
Yeah, eye to eye, man. That's why you're a podcast partner.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right.
Well,
UBK,
I
who's
have
your worst?
two of the worst Dracula, and these aren't comedy films. These were supposed to be serious portrayals of the character Dracula. One was Richard Roxburgh. Roxburgh, I think is how they
Was it a
pronounce his
Night
name.
at the Roxborough?
No, he was, probably would have rather watched that, believe it or not, than his portrayal. He played Dracula in the, and believe it or not, Stevens.
I love when he gets punch drunk. I don't even have to try. It's just.
You're right. You did not have to try on that one.
I'm just
You
getting
did
that
not try at all.
vision in my head of those guys dancing in the movie. What is love, baby?
What is
Don't
love?
hurt me. Richard Roxburgh.
Baby, don't hurt me.
From
Baby, don't
the
bite
movie
me.
Van Helsing in 2004. Another misfire movie. When I heard that the movie Van Helsing was going to be made and it was directed by Stephen Sommers, the guy that made the first two Mummy films, great director, he was going to make a movie about Van Helsing. Oh, wow, Van Helsing.
Yeah.
Hugh Jackman playing Van Helsing. What's the girl's name that I had a crush on for years? British actress that's in it.
Catherine Zeta-Jones.
No, Kate Beckinsale.
Kate Beckinsale.
Yeah, she plays the girl in it, and you got it was such promise for this film, but it came out and it was so incredibly over the top bad. And his portrayal of Dracula in that film is horrible. It's almost like everyone said, "Oh, be a little campy in this film," but no, you got playing Dracula, be 10 times campier. Don't do that; it doesn't work. The other one is Blade Trinity.
Oh.
The third Blade movie was pretty bad anyway. I did like the first two. The first one was pretty good. Another Marvel comic character, but an actor named Dominic Purcell played Dracula in that, or who was supposed to be Dracula. And he went on to be in some other things. I think he's a bodybuilder and whatnot, but it was a terrible. He was like if Meathead on All in the Family was Dracula. This is Dracula in this film. That doesn't work. He's just a dumb meathead, just an idiotic portrayal of Dracula. So that's my two worst Draculas I think I've ever seen.
Okay.
Ever on film.
We've got a couple of things. I don't think we're going to get to everything, but I wanted to ask this, and you guys pick which we definitely get to. I said pick your top 5 monsters, or if you could be in a Hollywood movie where you're going to play your favorite actor, bad guy, whatever, in a horror movie, which do you want to talk about first?
Monsters.
Monsters, your top 5 monsters. Okay.
Top 5 horror monsters?
Just monsters in general, like in terms of monster movies, whether it's the classic monsters, whether it's giant monsters, whether it's figments of your imagination monsters, whatever you want to classify as a monster.
And by the way, Pat McCormick from the Golden Age of TV just texted me and said Frank Langella for him too. So, yay.
Frank Langella.
That's cool.
I can't disagree with that.
Well, then I'm going to change my vote.
You can change.
Pat's smarter than me.
No, he said he's the best, not the worst.
Oh, okay.
All right, top 5 favorite monsters in kind of the horror genre of movies, going from 5 down to number 1. And I didn't know, I'll start, because I didn't know how to classify it. But
yeah, there's one that I don't know if it's a monster or not.
Right,
Again,
okay, so that's what I'm going to say with mine. But you know the movie Invasion of the Body Snatchers?
Yes.
Do you call them pod people? What are they called? But when they've been changed, but you're not sure they've been changed, and that idea of not knowing whether or not the person you're talking to was the person they were last night, that to me is a creepy concept of what's a monster when you don't know if that person really is who they are.
You could put it that way, yeah.
Yeah.
It creeped me out when I saw that one with Donald Sutherland, and then that iconic just scream at the end when she thinks he's the one, but he's still okay.
Oh, Brooke Adams comes up and approaches
Dear
him.
Lord.
Yeah.
You know,
that's right. Leonard Nimoy was in that.
A huge
that movie
impact.
has not been on my radar for a while, but I just got to chill.
Yeah, that's a
good movie.
Again, the early one, the one in the black and white, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, it was about the same thing, and it was pretty creepy as well.
That
so,
was.
Yeah.
Both of those were good movies.
Yeah.
So.
All right,
and
you're
another,
number 5.
another
Walt?
good remake.
Dracula is my number 5.
Okay.
Your
And
number 5 monster.
no reason. I like Dracula, but he isn't my number 1 monster. So,
Not mine.
Count Chocula.
Didn't even get on my list of top 5.
Yeah.
I'm not a big vampire fan, and the Twilight series didn't do a whole lot to help me love vampires.
I totally ignored
but
that.
as far as that goes, I think it's an overplayed monster. That's my problem.
See, I think my last real vampire movie that I liked was The Lost Boys.
Lost Boys was okay, but Near Dark for me.
Oh, yeah, that was good.
Yeah, it was good. Yes, it was.
Doesn't stand out as much as The Lost
All
Boys.
right, let's see if we can get to some more things quickly through here. So you're number 5.
I think my number 5 monster is being a mummy, the mummy.
Oh, yeah.
The
I mean,
Mummy.
there have been so
Okay.
many different mummy stories. How they have.
Is there a particular mummy you like more than others? Because there have been various iterations.
Oh, the '99 film, the remake,
Okay.
is probably my favorite mummy.
You
movie.
and I think a lot
I
alike. You're going
love
to hear that
movie.
come back in just a few minutes.
Love that movie.
That's really good. My number 4, another one of these sci-fi throwbacks to the 60s, but The Blob.
Oh, the Blob.
As a monster.
Yeah.
Talk about another film that was remade in the '80s and was fantastic.
It was a good remake.
I love that remake in the '80s.
I'll just never forget the horrific moment of seeing that it was growing with each person, and you realize it's absorbing them, and that's why it's
Right.
growing, and it's and not knowing what it is, and that it gets on you, and then starts to just
right.
Yeah, The Blob.
It's got to hurt too. So yeah.
For me, number 4 is the werewolf.
Ooh. Werewolf. Werewolf. Their castle.
Why are we talking like this?
I thought you wanted to.
And you didn't have that on you.
I know. You know what? It's because we talked about it so much that I figured there had to be something else I could mention.
No, there's not.
Say, all right, werewolf. I like it.
I think this is number 4, right? Number 4 is for me is vampires. Vampires as general, not just Dracula.
As a
'cause
creature.
he's the main guy.
Bloodsuckers. That
But
makes sense.
Vampires. I think I like other monsters better, but I think I like the character of Dracula better than just vampires in general. So yeah, vampires would be number 4.
All right, my number 3, you've already said, The Mummy, the version from Brendan Fraser's 1999 movie, The Mummy. I love that character. I love the concept of the character. The movie was great. So there we go.
Imhotep.
The Mummy.
That's him, yeah.
Imhotep.
All right, so we're on my number 3, King Kong. I don't like all the iterations of King Kong, but I like King Kong.
We'll pretend Peter Jackson's didn't take place.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, because it looked good, but it really took them forever to get to Kong in that film.
It
was
looked great.
overly
it was
long.
just so poorly done.
I think my favorite is probably like, was it 77, 78?
76?
76. There was
Jessica
Jeff
Lange.
Bridges, Jessica
Yeah.
Lange.
Yeah. That one was very mixed for a lot of people.
Yeah.
For some reason.
I think I
That was
liked
my
it
first
because
introduction to King Kong.
I think it was for me too. And I think having it in a contemporary setting, so like that happened yesterday in New York. You know, it kind of had that feel. I think that was one of the reasons I liked it. And,
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So we have a big monster in your top 5.
big monster.
BK, you're number 2.
Number 3.
Number three,
I think.
three,
Number
three.
3 for me, I think,
Right.
would be the werewolf genre.
Yeah.
The whole fact of becoming, bitten by a creature at night, and all of a sudden you become one when the moon is full. And it's always been my favorite kind of universal monster, because out of all the ones that I would want to be, if I had to choose one, I think I would want to be that one, because they all have their weaknesses. But like, why you want to be a vampire? They live forever, yeah, but they can still be killed by a stake, like werewolf, silver bullet. So,
But it takes 3 of them, so you got
That's
a better
right.
chance to dodge that.
That's right. Well, it's not only steak with a vampire; it's sunlight. Several times in the movie
Sunlight,
he's been
garlic,
burned
holy water.
at the end. Yeah.
Apparently,
So-
if you're in the Twilight series, ripped apart by wolves.
even when I watched the stinky Twilight films, which I was forced almost at gunpoint to watch, I couldn't say no. I'm like, okay, I'll watch them. I was rooting for the werewolves.
Yes.
I'm like, those guys are cool. I want to be one of those. And they could change into werewolves instantaneously, almost like in a blink of an eye.
You know
They
how
were the wolf.
sad this is, because my girls were at that age where they wanted to start reading those kinds of novels,
Yeah.
so we had to read them ahead of time to make sure it was okay.
Wasn't that painful?
It was horrifying. But I was Team Jacob. Definitely Team Jacob.
Yeah, I would pick him every
I was
time.
not Team.
And what's so weird?
Team Edward, all sparkly and clean,
What's-
like angst and goth.
Walt, are you familiar with the story of the Twilight films?
Unfortunately, yes.
He's got daughters.
This girl.
I haven't read any of them. I haven't watched any of them, but yes.
This
I'm
girl,
familiar.
could she pick more bad boyfriends? She falls in love with a vampire, then the one guy's a werewolf, likes her. The only thing was missing was that one kid that had the bolts in his neck at school, the Frankenstein,
Right.
could fall in love with her, and then you could have the creature from the Black Lagoon come out of the lake and fall in love with her. Why didn't they add the other two? I think that would have been much more interesting.
Absolutely.
This is terrible.
So-
Every single one of those is terrible.
Yes, they are terrible.
But it is what it is, and you know what? She's made a whole lot more money than any of us.
Oh
have.
yeah, very
So-
successful.
All right, my number 2 is one of those giant monsters, but for me, it's Godzilla. Number 2, Gojira.
What Godzilla? What a franchise that's been over the years.
I love Godzilla
Since
still to this day.
1954.
The roar he has is the most distinctive roar. Like when you hear it, you know it.
Yeah, and it's also my number 2. And I even really liked the most recent Godzilla.
The recent one was great. Godzilla, King of the Monsters, was actually better than the one before that.
I agree.
But it's still part of the same cinematic universe that
right.
King Kong, Skull Island, they're all going to bring them all together in just a few years. And it's still going probably as strong as it ever has been, these big monsters.
Yeah. And I liked how powerful he is. He's gigantic. He fills the screen.
He has definitely grown over the years.
Terrorizing.
It's all the steroids.
Did you like the one scene in the film where he got really supercharged and they looked at him and he's like he's been working out?
Yeah,
because he's almost all buffed up there. That was funny.
Well, and I told
really
my daughters after we saw it, we were leaving, and I was like, I love those old Godzilla movies, you know, where he tears Tokyo all to pieces. Right. But like, this is what Godzilla should be. You know? Just a big, raging monster. That's Godzilla. Right. Don't give him feelings.
Right.
Don't make him sparkly. Don't have him hug anybody.
He's almost doing the Terminator monologue there from Michael Bain.
Right.
He has no remorse.
He will not ever stop.
Kicks buildings apart.
Always breathe fire on you all the time.
He throws train cars.
That's right. Uses telephone poles as toothpicks. You're right, he does.
Godzilla, great. Awesome.
Oh, that's
Your number
great.
2, BK.
My number 2. Well, I kind of went back and forth with number 2 and number 1. But, geez. I don't even know. Now I'm thinking about it now. My number 2 is probably going to be Godzilla.
Oh,
because
all of our number 2s are identical.
Because I flirted with I think I like the Godzilla genre better than my number 1 because Godzilla's had more films and whatnot, more time to blossom as a monster on the screen, taking acting lessons and stuff. So, but I'm a Godzilla fan from way back. I used to watch him when he was the guy in the suit. Mm-hmm. And that's
I remember when they were black and white movies.
But Godzilla had Godzilla and the other. I can't talk about the other one because he's my number 1. But they had a personality about them. They were kind of sometimes the good guy that wanted to save the city against whatever other monster was attacking.
There were worse monsters.
There were worse. There's a worse monster than that, believe it or not, that this monster is going to take care of. So, yes, Godzilla is an icon and a legend and my number 2 monster. Yes.
Look at that. All on the same page. My number 1, and it's because I love canines. I am a dog lover through and through. I would rather spend time with my dogs than most anything else. To be a werewolf, to have the idea of werewolf powers, the transformation, it's my number 1. It's just the coolest thing in the world to me, and I just never get tired of watching movies. I think the Harry Potter werewolf may be my favorite transformation.
Professor Lupin, yes.
That's
my favorite Harry Potter film is that one, believe it or not. It's a Prisoner of Azkaban,
Prisoner of Azkaban.
Yeah, that's my favorite film.
So werewolves are my number 1
It's just
monster.
cool. It's got to be painful and a horrible curse to have, but if I'm going to be either an undead vampire blood-sucking thing or a mummy or a werewolf, I'm going to pick a werewolf too. Yeah, it's just kind of cool. You know, hairy guys get the chicks. That's just the way it is.
Hey, we travel in packs and we know how to. And we take and again, we'll take apart vampires. No problem.
Right.
Rip them in 2. Spit them out.
That's right.
Walt, your number 1.
Twilight films.
My number 1 has always been, I think, my favorite monster, and that's Frankenstein. And
Frankenstein or Frankenstein's monster? Because they're both monsters.
They are both monsters. And go back and listen to our discussions on that. But yes, I mean, it's the whole thing of man trying to play God and it blowing up in his face, and the humanity that you see in Frankenstein and the horror that you see, and it's just a deep story. Mm-hmm. It's a rich story, and I really have not read Frankenstein in 30 years. I probably need to go back and read it.
It was a hard book for me to read. It's written in an old way by Mary Shelley, and it's kind of, again, boring in some parts. But again, that's what some people say about older movies. So got to look beyond that, I guess.
But I just when the creature is portrayed right, when the story is told right, it is a fantastic story, and it goes so far beyond just being a monster going and killing people or a monster scaring people. It speaks to who we are as humans, and it is a fantastic story.
And you've got so many versions of it to watch on film. And
got about less than a minute.
And this whole show
We need
is
another
almost
hour.
over.
We need another
BK,
hour.
your
My number
favorite.
one is Frankenstein.
There you
That's
go.
my number one. It's got so many to it. Everything you said, plus if you've never seen every version of it, which I think I've seen almost every version of it from 1910, Thomas Edison's silent version,
Yes.
all the way up to Kenneth Branagh's version with Robert De Niro. Fantastic monster. A monster with sympathy is what you have
Yeah.
for Frankenstein.
Yeah.
That
Wow.
is going to bring us to a close at the witching hour.
It's
All right,
approaching
Walt, any
midnight.
final thoughts on Halloween 2019?
I've had a blast. And again, this was my first Spooktacular.
It was.
And
Welcome.
so thanks for having me.
Welcome
And
to the club.
I really
once-
had a blast.
It's like the Hotel California. You can check out any time, but you can never leave.
Can we do another hour? Let's do another.
I probably could.
I could.
But I got to be back in
And again, at like an hour and a half.
5. BK, final thoughts?
Just glad to do it. We'll look forward to it every year, and I hope we continue to do it. Happy Halloween to everyone, and thanks to everyone for listening.